Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is the 38th episode of the story, where Naruto is raised by Jiraiya and Tsunade. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel after watching the video. So, let us begin. Undisclosed location, a few days before the present time, there he is. Don't let him escape. Be careful, that guy can kill you in one hit if you let him. Yugo was a man that, above all things, appreciated the quiet and calm. Calm that he was denied due to being born with a bloodline limit that brought his most primal, animalistic, and downright violent impulses to the forefront, transforming him into a sadistic monster, both on the inside and the outside. His only hope was to seclude himself on a cave and pray that nobody would get close to him, since he didn't want to have more blood on his hands. That's it, until a certain white-haired man arrived, an Otogakure ninja by the name of Kimimaro Kagaya. Not only did Kimimaro manage to subdue Yugo when he succumbed to the rage and the violence of his curse, but introduced him to Orochimaru, a man who promised to help Yugo if he allowed the man to research his genes. Naturally, Yugo accepted. Yugo spent most of his time under Orochimaru locked inside a cell, not that he would have wanted anything else. From time to time, Kimimaro would visit him and tell him about the missions the last member of the Kagaya clan completed. Then, one time Kimimaro requested Yugo to accompany him to a mission, to capture some old ninja from IWA. Kimimaro almost lost his life to the dreaded Itachi Uchiha, but in the end, the mission was a success, and Orochimaru only lost one man to the enemy. Then, Kimimaro visited for what he felt would be the last time in a long time, to tell him about the war that was going to happen. The days following that, silence reigned. The base was almost entirely empty, devoid of any activity. The only visits he received were the Oto ninjas who brought him food and water twice per day. Until one day, the silence was no more. He could hear screams, shouts, metal clashing against metal. He was then released by an Otogakure ninja, and his words made no sense. There has been a revolt. They outnumber us. You have to help us, the Oto ninja cried. Those were his last words, as the man was then slain, much to Yugo's surprise, by another ninja also wearing Otogakure's uniform. So, these people would dare betray Orochimaru-sama? He would make them regret it. At first, Yugo had no trouble beating the ninjas who tried to fight him, only needing a smidge of his curse to even the odds and stay at a comfortable advantage. Then, she showed up. And with a few jutsu, she showed that he wasn't a rival to her. The orange-haired man decided that the best thing he could do was to escape and find either Kimimaro or Orochimaru-sama, and warn them about the betrayal among their own ranks. So that's how he found himself running away from men that by LL accounts should have been his comrades, but were now his enemies. Earth release, mud trap. Suddenly, the ground beneath Yugo's feet turned into a pit of mud, breaking his escape, as he started to slowly sink. This trap would stop most ninjas, but most ninjas weren't Yugo. Activating his curse, Yugo grew several tube-like appendages on his back. Said appendages fired jets of chakra, propelling the orange-haired man upwards, allowing him to escape. Escape which was also short-lived as the ball end of a Kuzurigama wrapped its chain around his ankles, making him drop to the ground. Growling, Yugo pulled the chain, and the hapless ninja with it, towards him, before slamming his fist on the man's face, sending him flying backwards. He didn't know if the man was dead or not, and frankly he didn't care. More traitors landed around him, weapons drawn. They were cutting his escape, but not for long. All he would release, would binding jutsu. Too late. Multiple wooden roots broke from the ground beneath him, and quickly wrapped themselves around his body and limbs, immobilizing him completely. Well done, the jutsu caster, a young white-haired woman in an Otogakure uniform, said as he landed near them. She walked towards Yugo, and smiled. Now he won't escape. Yugo growled at her. We always knew that there were traitors among our ranks. But you, Orochimaru-sama's own daughter, to be one of them, is beyond shameful. Hibiko's face morphed into a mask of fury, stomped towards Yugo, and slapped him across the face. Traitor! You think I'm a traitor, she screeched. It was our beloved father who abandoned his son and my brother to Konoha. Then he promised me that he wouldn't rest until he was back with us, but he lied. He lied to me, and lied to him. You were the one who killed Kabuto, right? Yugo asked, as he now realized who was behind the silver-haired Medicnene's mysterious death. You now lash at Orochimaru-sama by killing people he considers valuable. Hibiko turned around, and seethed. I'm done with Orochimaru. I want him to pay for his betrayal, to lose everything he has and cherish. Though my reasons behind killing him were more pragmatic rather than emotional. Then what do you want to do with me? Yugo asked. Hibiko turned around, and gave him an unnerving smile. You're a bargaining chip. Wood release, blooming garden. That moment, flowers started to grow on the roots that were immobilizing Yugo. They reached maturity in a few seconds, and upon blooming, showered the orange-haired man with glittering yellow pollen. The moment he inhaled that pollen, Yugo fell deeply asleep. Tentatively, Hibiko released Yugo from the restraining roots, and he fell to the floor like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Yes, he wouldn't move in quite some time. It is done. Bind him, and cover him in chakra-suppressing seals. I saw him in action, and while he lacks finesse, his raw power is impressive, Hibiko ordered. Two of her men were already picking the unconscious Yugo up, and dragged him away. Then burn this place down. We're already done here. Yes, ma'am, the rest of the ninjas say. Once we finish this task, what are we going to do next? One of her ninjas asked. Where are we going? To the Ninja Alliance HQ, Hibiko said. It's about time to get my brother back. Land of Fire, nighttime, present time after the battle was over, Division Commanders A, Kuratsuchi and Tsunade ordered their troops to find a suitable place for a base camp. The first order of business was to attend the wounded and gather the dead. The second order of business, naturally, was to report HQ of the result of their battle. The three of them were now assigned the communications tent, with Ino Yamanaka being the one linking their minds to those in HQ. Congratulations for your victory, Jiraiya's voice said, sounding satisfied. This will bring us one step closer to put an end to this war. A grumbled, clenching his fist. This wasn't much of a victory if we needed no less than 3 divisions to break their advance. I'm afraid I'll have to give it to the big guy, Kuratsuchi agreed with a nod. We've been winning most of the battles, but I have this feeling that Akatsuki is just playing with us. The quality of the reanimations have been increasing with each passing battle. I'm afraid of what are they going to throw at us next. Tsunade and her Rinnegan were of much help this battle, but she can't be in every battle at once, the Raikage concluded. I see your point. We're suffering many casualties, Jiraiya's voice said, as Shikaku's image flashed in their minds for a second. A tear dropped from Ino's eyes hidden by the psychic-enhancing helmet. But so is Akatsuki. We destroyed many of their Zetsu clones, as well as their reanimations. But Orochimaru can replace the reanimations we kill, can't he? Kuratsuchi asked. Technically yes, but I'm afraid it won't be that easy, Jiraiya replied. Impure World Resurrection needs a living sacrifice to reanimate somebody, and I presume Orochimaru isn't in position to kidnap people to kill. Also, according to our research of the jutsu, the piece of DNA used to revive the intended target is consumed by the jutsu, and I'd bet the royalties of my Aika Aika series that Orochimaru used most of his available DNA of the deceased ninjas to create this batch of zombies. The fact that we haven't seen any of the zombies we previously destroyed support this claim. Still, to let such line of thinking drop our guard when we don't have hard evidence to sustain it would be beyond foolish, Chiyo's voice chimed in. Relax, nobody said anything about dropping our guard, Tsunade replied, rolling her eyes. If anything, I'd say that things will get even harder from this point onwards. There are many ninjas that Orochimaru could have resurrected but we haven't seen yet. Like former Kages. Did Orochimaru resort to do that in the past? Ao's voice asked. Indeed. When he attacked Konoha a few years ago, he had brought the first, second, and fourth Hokages with him, Jiraiya explained. The fact that he was able to resurrect my former apprentice is especially troublesome, given that his soul should be sealed inside the stomach of the god of the dead. And now that he has a much greater mastery of the jutsu, he will resurrect them, as well as more Kages to bolster Akatsuki's forces, A said. The Raikage clenched his fist even harder when he realized that his late father, the previous Raikage, would be among those resurrected. The third Raikage was one of the strongest ninjas Kyomo ever produced, being more than a match for the Eight Tails, and needing an army of 10,000 Konoha and Suna ninjas fighting him for 3 days straight until he finally died of exhaustion. He wondered if he'd be able to fight his father if his worst fears went to pass. He heard how Fugaku Uchiha, who was among the reanimations that contributed to his previous defeat, had been fought and destroyed by his two sons. He didn't want to imagine what those two kids had to feel while they were fighting that mockery of their deceased father. Then there was also the copy ninja Kakashi, who also had to put down his own father, the White Fang, as well as the father from Takigakir's young leader. And of course, the father of the Yamanaka girl that was now linking their minds with HQ, the one who had scanned his mind looking for the Jinchuriki's hideout. By the way, I have bad news, A interceded. During my division's battle with Akatsuki, a reanimation of what I'd been told was the former Yamanaka clan head, Ino flinched upon hearing that. The fact that her father was still out there tormented her. Managed to ambush me and scan my mind. Despite my best efforts, he was able to pry from my mind the location of the 3 Jinchuriki. What? Tsunade said, almost screaming, turning at him. These are grave news indeed, Anoki's voice said. Raikage, you know that island. What are Akatsuki's chances of finding it? Jiraiya asked. His tone was firm, but the Raikage could tell that there was worry in his voice. I'd say no, since I gave explicit orders to move the island daily to minimize the chances of being found, he replied. But if they have those flying Zetsu looking for it from the sky, I'd say they do have a chance to find it. That would explain why we saw so few flying Zetsu lately, Kuratsuchi said, placing a hand under her chin. They must be using them to scour the skies. I think we should send reinforcements to the island. No. If we do that, Akatsuki might follow them and find it even faster, A countered. I agree with the Raikage, Jiraiya said. I'll send a messenger toad to tell them to keep their eyes open, and to expect a potential attack. Anything else you might want to tell me? Oh yes, there's something more, Kuratsuchi said, before looking at Tsunade. And given that Tsunade is with us, she may offer some insight on the subject. Upon hearing this, Tsunade raised an eyebrow. What is it, granddaughter? Anoki's voice asked. Today Akatsuki sent a new weapon against us. Not a new kind of Zetsu or reanimation but a colossal creature made of wood, Kuratsuchi said. I heard some Konoha ninjas called it a wood golem, and is related to the first Hokage. A wood golem? Anoki's shocked voice said. Good grief. I take you're familiar with the creature. And that it's not good news, Kuratsuchi said. Yes. The wood golem was my grandfather's most powerful jutsu that didn't involve senjutsu, Tsunade said. It's powerful enough to match any tailed beast in combat. And you say that you fought against one? Well, not me alone. I had hundreds of other ninjas backing me up. Some of them sages, from what I've been told, Kuratsuchi said. But if it wasn't for dust release, I don't think we would have been able to put that thing down for good. This begets a question, Jiraiya interceded. How did Akatsuki manage to summon a wood golem? It isn't obvious. Somebody among Akatsuki's ranks with wood release created it, A replied. After all, both Obito and those Zetsu monsters have the cells of the first Hokage. Is not that simple, Tsunade said, shaking her head. Like I said before, the wood golem was one of my grandfather's most powerful jutsu. No other would release user in Konoha, either born with it like my youngest daughter or gained it through artificial means like Tenzo or Rin Noera were able to replicate a jutsu of such scale. Indeed. That's like saying that any water release user should be able to flood a coast city with a tsunami, Jiraiya agreed. It is as we feared, Chiyo's voice was heard. Akatsuki hasn't even deployed their most powerful assets yet. I'm sure that wasn't the only giant golem they have in reserve. Did any of our scouts find the location of Akatsuki's base? A asked. Unfortunately, we didn't, Jiraiya replied. We do know that at the very least, Orochimaru has to be relatively close to his reanimations if he wants to directly control them. Some of our best sensors are working on it, but given the jutsu's range, it leaves us with quite a vast area to search, Ao's voice interceded. Let's hope Naruto and Fu can finish their training soon, Tsunade said, letting out a sigh, her arms crossed. Not only are they in danger, but I'm afraid we're going to need them in the front lines. Yes. I'd say that Akatsuki has yet to do their worst, Kuratsuchi said, shaking her head. Fortunately, our casualties are lower than Akatsuki's, plus we still have the 4th Division completely fresh, Jiraiya replied, trying to sound positive. So, anything else you need to report? The 2 Kages and the 1 Sannin looked at each other, but none of them said anything. No, we believe that's all, A said. Very well then. In that case, let's wrap this meeting up. Go and have some rest, Jiraiya said. Ino undid the mental link, and everybody left the communications tent. As with every other aftermath of a victorious battle, the mood around the Allied forces was that of celebration. Many ninjas were sitting around bonfires, sharing meals, chatting with each other, and having a good time, as they enjoyed the feeling of surviving another battle, and that the fact that with each victory, the war's end was a little closer. Not everybody was in the mood for celebrations, though. As with every battle, many ninjas lost their lives. And those who died in the line of duty had friends and loved ones, some of them who were also part of the same division. And while many learned of their loved ones' deaths after the battle, others were unfortunate enough to see their friends and family dying before their very eyes. Such was the case of Shikamaru Nara. After he saw his father being gutted by the zombie of Fugaku Uchiha, the now Nara clan had remained strong for the sake of his friends and comrades, and pushed his feelings of sadness and sorrow away, and continued to do so until reinforcements arrived. Though, now that the immediate threat was finally over, Shikamaru didn't have to repress his feelings anymore. That's why he looked for a place away from the large crowds, sat down, and cried his eyes out, until his eyes could shed no more tears. It made him realize something. When Inoichi died so many years ago, he thought he could understand how Ino felt, given that both he and Choji were pretty close to her dad. However, now that it was his own father who died, he realized it was much worse. Hey! Shikamaru looked up, a bit startled, since he wasn't expecting anyone to find him there. Then again, if there was someone who could that was his Jonin-sensei Asuma. Oh hey, Shikamaru greeted back. Do you mind some company? Asuma asked, noticing Shikamaru's reddened eyes. It looks like you need it. Shikamaru didn't say anything. He did want to be alone, but the rational part of his brain told him that talking to a friendly face would do him good. The young Nara nodded, and the Sarutobi Jonin sat beside him. First of all, let me tell you I'm very sorry, Asuma said, placing a hand on Shikamaru's shoulder. Even before taking you under my wing, I was close with your dad. He was a great man. He didn't deserve to die like that. He didn't deserve to die in this war, either. Just like how Ino's dad didn't deserve to die in the Uchiha insurrection, along with many others, Shikamaru said, letting out a mirthless chuckle. You know, I should have expected this. I mean, we're ninjas, death is part of our job description. You hear missions going wrong and ninjas dying all the time, but those are people you don't know, and you think it's never going to happen to you until it does. We might be ninjas, but we're also human, Asuma told him. Feeling sad for those who left us behind is only natural. I know, Shikamaru said. You know, I'm happy that Choza was assigned to that Kumo secret island, away from the battles. At least one of us will still have a father when all of this ends. Also, why are you here, all on your own? Asuma asked. Given what you're going through, you should share how you feel with your friends. I'm sure they'll make going through this much easier. I didn't want to bother them and I didn't want them to see me like this, Shikamaru replied, his voice almost a whisper. Plus I wanted to be alone. Yes, I can understand that feeling, Asuma said, nodding. But in my own experience, that's never good. You have wonderful friends, Shikamaru. Friends who are in this very same division. Don't push them away when you need them the most. Your own experience. Shikamaru repeated, as the gears in his brain started to turn, and quickly realized whom he was talking about. Oh, right, Biwako Sarutobi, my mother, yes. She died the night the Nine Tails attacked, though ironically, she wasn't killed by the beast, but by that damn Uchiha traitor, Asuma said almost in a growl, his hand clenching into a fist at the memory. And I wasn't the only one who lost family or friends that day. My wife also lost her father. Kakashi lost his sensei. Irika sensei also lost his parents that night, Shikamaru remembered. Yes. This life is far from easy, Asuma said. That's why relying on others when we're at our lowest moments is so important. The pain didn't go away in an instant, and in a manner of speaking, it never went away. But my friends and remaining family made that pain a little less unbearable. There you are. A new voice said. Shikamaru raised his eyes, and saw Ino and Choji approaching him. While maybe not bad as him, the two of them looked like they also did their own share of crying. Shikamaru, what are you doing here? Choji asked. Asuma-sensei? Ino asked. Asuma didn't say anything, and merely nudged Shikamaru. The young Nara got up, and took a step towards his teammates. Sorry guys, he felt like crying some more, but his reddened eyes were completely dry. I just wanted to be alone. No, it's okay, Dino said. I felt the same way when my dad died. Then, without any warning, Choji pulled Shikamaru into a hug that Ino joined in as well. Hey man, just so you know we're here for you, okay? Choji asked, tears streaming from his eyes. You were there for me when my dad died, and I'll be here for you as well, Ino added, crying as well. Yeah. We're the Ino Shikacho. As long as we have each other, nothing can stop us. Choji said, trying and failing to reel in his tears. I thank you guys, Shikamaru replied, his voice quivering. Meanwhile, at other side of the camp, while a member of the Konoha 15 was mourning the death of his father, another reunited with his father, Niji said. Niji. Hizashi said in surprise, rushing to greet the young man. Hikari was slowly walking behind him, leaving the man enough space as not to intrude with the reunion. My son. I'm so glad to see you're okay. How have you been? I've been good, father. Despite the constant danger, I never felt myself in danger. Niji reassured him. He then looked at Hikari, and bowed. Hikari-sama. Come on Niji, you can drop the honorific already. I'm not the clan head anymore. Aunt Hikari would be fine, the woman said. I'm sorry Hikari-sama, Aunt, Niji replied, bowing again. Even if I treasure being free from the yokel of the caged bird seal, there are some habits that are a bit hard to break. Anyway, I can see that the two of you have been doing good. You don't appear to have any kind of visible wound. Physical, maybe. Our wounds are more internal, boy, Hizashi said. Your father and I were forced to fight the undead reanimation of my late husband, Hikari said, as she averted her gaze. A frown developed on Niji's face, as he clenched his fist. Of course. Hayashi-sama was a formidable ninja. It's only logical that Orochimaru would decide to recruit him for his army of abominations. I trust you dealt with him? Yes. My brother returned where he belonged, Hisashi said. Still, fighting him was a harrowing experience. There were many of our clansmen that traitor raised as his undead slaves, Hikari said, her face contorting into an angry grimace. Not only Akatsuki was responsible for the greatest blow our clan ever suffered, but now they have to reopen old wounds and rub salt into them. This war is unlike any other ever fought, indeed, Hisashi said. Akatsuki is not only using brute force, but they expect to demoralize us by forcing us to fight our late loved ones. We must not fall to such cheap tactics. Hikari let out a weary sigh. I know. But it's easier said than done. You weren't the only ones fighting a loved one. I heard that Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha had to fight their father, Neji told them. I managed to catch some of the fight through my Byakugan, and I can confirm that they were the only ones capable of fighting him on even terms. Poor kids. They didn't deserve that, Hisashi said, shaking his head. Let's hope they don't have to go through such horrible experience again. Neji couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. I must say, I wasn't expecting you to show so much sympathy to the Uchihas. Did Natsu getting close to Itachi changed all your perception of them? Itachi Uchiha helped evacuate our weakest clan members during the Akatsuki's invasion of Konoha. We owe him a lot, Hisashi explained. Plus, we know that neither him, nor Sasuke or Shisui are like the rest of his clansmen who betrayed the village for power, Hikari added. Too bad there's still one Uchiha left that's a rotten apple, Neji replied, reminding his father and aunt of Obito. Indeed. But thankfully, his days of undermining Konoha will soon come to an end, Hisashi said. Not only is he losing more and more troops with each battle, but he also lost the puppets from that Tonri man. Really? Neji asked. There were reports from a couple battlefields of the puppets suddenly stopping working all of a sudden, Hisashi explained. And we haven't seen any more since those news arrived. Then that means that Hinata's mission was a success, Hikari said, placing her hands over her heart. Hopefully she will come back to us soon enough. And with her help, the war will end even sooner. There you are. Choji was a bit startled by the girl shouting behind him, but when he turned around and saw Karui walking towards him, he smiled. Hey, Karui, he said, waving at her, as he walked towards her as well, meeting the Kumo Kunoichi in the middle. So the red-headed Kunoichi began, rubbing her arm, looking a bit uneasy. How is your friend? You mean Shikamaru? Choji asked. Karui nodded. The Akimichi heir's expression understandably saddened a little. Not too good. But that's as expected. He saw his dad being killed in front of him. That's not something he's going to recover from soon. Though he said he's going to make an effort in order to keep his head in the war. Poor guy. It has to be tough to repress his feelings like that, Karui replied, as she and Choji started to walk together towards nowhere in particular. But maybe that's how he chose to honor his father's memory. I still remember when the news of B-sensei's capture of Akatsuki reached us. Both my teammates and I were so devastated, and I decided that the best we could do was to continue with our jobs to the best of our ability for that same reason, albeit in our case we were lucky he turned out to be alive. Shikaku was Konoha's Jonin commander, and he took his job pretty seriously, so yeah, I can believe that that's what he'd want Shikamaru to do. At least, as long as the war continues, Choji said, sounding downtrodden. So, where is he? I don't know him much, but I want to give him my condolences, Karui sympathetically said. He said he felt tired and went to his tent right now in order to sleep, Choji told Karui, who deflated a little. Well, he isn't going to get much sleep with all the noise going around us, Karui said, looking around to all the celebrating ninjas around them, as well as the multitude of bonfires. Besides his intellect and strategical skills, one of Shikamaru's biggest talents is being able to sleep pretty much anywhere and anytime, Choji replied, making the redhead chuckle a little. He then sobered up a little. We better let him rest. He might feel a little better tomorrow. If I don't see him, please give him condolences on my behalf, Karui requested. Will do, the Akimichi replied. There was a moment of silence. Then, Karui began to think about something Choji had said earlier, and asked, Were you and your friend's dad close? Yes. Our clans have been pretty close to each other, as well as Ino's clan, Choji began. And thus, Shikaku was not just like an uncle, but like a second dad to me and Ino. I've never heard of three clans being that close to each other, Karui noted. Or at least, being so close yet still remain relatively independent. Yeah. I know our clans are something of an aberration. Before the time of the villages, some clans would make alliances here and there, but never permanent or even long-term. Our clans, though, became so close upon realizing how our unique jutsu worked so well with each other, the Akimichi clan heir explained. Karui looked pensive, as if analyzing Choji's words. Well, I kind of understand that. After all, clan unity was the foundation of the ninja villages. Yours started earlier than the rest. Though, speaking of clans, and now that I think about it, I don't think you ever told me your last name, Choji told him. Oh. Well, I do have a last name, but in Kumo, we don't give them much importance, so we don't use them that often. Mostly for legal matters and stuff like that, Karui told him. That's pretty odd, Choji said. That's how Kumo rolls. The first Raikage wanted to make sure that his ninjas were Kumo ninjas first, everything else second, as a way to create unity and avoid clashes between the clans that formed the fledgling village, so he wanted to downplay clan identity in favor of village identity, Karui explained. I don't think if such thing would have flown in Konoha. The clans that formed it, mine included, were very proud of their name, history, and identity, Choji mentioned. Well, people didn't nod and happily accepted such thing at first. The original clans that formed the nascent Kumo were like that as well, if history books were anything to go by, the redhead continued. That's why the first Raikage, in order to set example, not only did he give up his clan name, but his own name as well, and merely adopted the name as a symbol of being a servant of Kumo first and foremost. The following Raikage did the same as well. Wait, so your Raikage isn't really named, Choji asked. Well, it makes sense, having a single letter for a name is kind of dumb. Karui couldn't help but giggle. I see. I'll tell my teammate T. What do you think of her name? W8. I said that without thinking. Choji sputtered, as he shook his arms wildly. I mean, one-letter names can be kind of cool. Relax, silly, Karui said, chuckling a little. I don't plan to tell her anything. But yeah, thanks to our first Raikage, one-letter names became kind of common in our village. Still, I better watch my tongue from now onwards. I'd hate to accidentally insult one of your friends, Choji sheepishly said. Despite the recent victory, both for the Ninja Alliance and on a personal level, Sasuke wasn't in the mood for parties. That's why, instead of joining the others in their celebration of their recent victory, the youngest Uchiha decided to stay on a place away from the main camp, albeit not too far away, for cautionary reasons. Finding a not too tall tree, Sasuke climbed it and sat on one of its highest branches, and looked at the starry sky. After so long, he finally did it. He had mastered the Mangekyo Sharingan. No matter how many times he used it, he wasn't forced to relive that horrible moment from his past. The complete powers of the Uchiha were now at his disposal. And all he had to do was to follow the advice from his pink-haired smartass of a girlfriend. She's never going shut up when I tell her about it, Sasuke chuckled good-naturedly. However, even then, dark thoughts managed to push their way into his mind. Had he realized the key to mastering his power sooner, maybe he should have been able to complete some missions that ended in failure. The fight against Akatsuki to stop them from capturing Yujito being chief among them. Had that battle gone differently, maybe Akatsuki wouldn't have been emboldened to start a war with only 5-tailed beasts. Not to mention that we would have one more perfect Jinchuriki among our ranks, Sasuke said in realization. However, Sasuke then did something his past self would have never done, pushing those negative thoughts away. No. There's no use in lamenting about the past. All that I can do is make sure the future is better. I can't obsess over a single issue, that's why I was unable to master the Mangekyo Sharingan. You should latch on to that train of thought. It would do you a lot of good, a new voice said. In fact, I'd say is doing you a lot of good. Sasuke turned around and saw his Jonin sensei perched on the same branch. She then sat beside him. Do you mind some company? Sasuke merely shrugged. Knock yourself out. I heard about your battle against the reanimation of your father. Itachi-kun, and you did a pretty good job, Shizen said. And you managed to master your Mangekyo Sharingan just in time. I'm proud of you. Thank you, sensei, Sasuke replied, averting his gaze so his teacher wouldn't see the faint blush across his face. So, what are you doing here all by yourself? Shizen asked. I'd figured out you'd be with Sakura. Or with Itachi. Sakura is helping Tsunade watching over some injured in grave condition. I think her shift will end in a couple hours, Sasuke said, before a scowl developed in his face. And Itachi is with Natsu. Shizen flinched upon hearing how Sasuke practically spat the name of Itachi's almost girlfriend. Wow. You're not that fond of that girl, are you? I'm glad that you were okay with me dating and later marrying your cousin. Not you too, Sasuke groaned. Yeah, Itachi already told me you aren't that fond of the girl, Shizen said, giggling a little. If you're going to tell me that I'm being irrational and petty, save it, the Uchiha scoffed. While you are being irrational and petty, I'm going to tell you that, Shizen said. I know it's just a phase, and that you'll eventually learn to accept that your brother has the right to love someone like you and Shursui have. Whatever. Shizen's smile didn't falter. Anyway, let's talk about something more positive. Like your victory today. Did it make you feel good? It felt like a door of my past that had been open for years has finally been closed, Sasuke replied. Seeing father after so many years wasn't a pleasant experience, much less being forced to fight against him. But now that I did, I feel liberated. The Uchiha insurrection left many wounds that took very long to close, Shizen agreed with a nod. What most people don't realize is that the remaining Uchiha were just as hurt as the rest of Konoha. Hearing father saying that he regretted what he did helped. As well as the fact that at least we got to say goodbye to each other, unlike that time, Sasuke said, letting out a sigh he didn't know was holding. It would have been nice if I had the same chance with mom, but on the other side, I would have hated seeing her as a other undead slave of Orochimaru. Many people are being forced to fight deceased loved ones, Shizen said. What about you, sensei? Are you afraid that Orochimaru might raise from the grave a deceased loved one? Sasuke asked. Then again, he couldn't think in anybody that Shizen could consider precious that wasn't still alive. Now that I think about it, I don't think you ever told us about your family other than Tsunade. Because, for a good part of my life, Tsunade-sama was all my family, Shizen replied. My parents died on a mission when I could barely speak, and before Tsunade-sama took me under her wing, it was my uncle Dan who raised me. In case you don't know, Dan was Tsunade-sama's former lover. He tragically died during the Second Ninja War. It was his death who prompted Tsunade-sama to abandon the village and become a vagrant. Was he strong? Sasuke asked. Very, Shizen said with a nod. There were talks that, once the Second War was over, he'd seize the third as the new Hokage. But alas, it couldn't be, and it wasn't until Minato took the hat that Sarutobi-sama retired. Not that his retirement lasted that long. A powerful ninja with potential to cause emotional damage to our two best medics. Then surely Orochimaru brought him back from the dead, Sasuke stated. Despite the possibility, Shizun remained unperturbed. I think I may jinx it, but I don't think there's anything Orochimaru has to throw at us that can take us down for good. You seem awfully confident in us, Sasuke noted. How can I not be, after seeing the amazing work you did today? Shizun smiled at Sasuke. Especially now that you're stronger than ever. Strong. Yes. That word resonated in Sasuke's mind. After awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan, Sasuke felt powerful. But his control of said power was very little. Not anymore. Now he felt truly strong. Because the burdens of the past weren't slowing him down anymore. Yes, he felt he could take down any enemy. Fate, however, would take Sasuke on that statement soon. Ninja Alliance HQ, Land of Fire. Next day Irika Yumino had never been in a war before. The closest thing to an acute battle he had been in was the night the Nine Tails attacked Konoha, and the night the Uchiha clan rebelled. 2 nights that would never forget, no matter how much he tried. So of course, the idea of being deployed to a war didn't appeal to him in the slightest, even if he was ready to lay his life down for the sake of his village. So, when he was assigned to the Ninja Alliance HQ Defense Platoon, because of his skill with defensive and barrier ninjutsu, to say he was happy was an understatement. Of course, he didn't voice those thoughts out loud. He didn't want to appear like a craven to both his fellow Konoha ninjas and the ninjas from other villages he was working alongside at the moment. Then again, it has been almost a decade since Irika had been an active ninja the strict sense of the word. Shortly after being 18, Irika was asked to fill a temporal position as a teacher at the academy. While reluctant at first, he grew to love the job, to the point that he applied to become a full-time teacher. Even if Irika continued training and honing his skills on his own, he saw very little combat during that period. So, needless to say, Irika was glad that he was assigned to a position that, even if the possibility of being attacked was there, it was quite small. The explosions that rocked the entire area made the teacher realize that a small probability doesn't mean zero. "We're under attack," an IWA ninja cried. This managed to alert all the ninjas inside the building, who poured outside of it, kunai, shuriken and other weapons ready. From the forest around the place, ninjas wearing Otogekure uniforms leaped into the ground, weapons ready as well. The thick of Akatsuki's army have been the white Zetsu clones. But Orochimaru still has his own army of ninjas, Irika thought, pulling out a kunai, joining the fray. I guess his plan is to attack the brains of the alliance so the rest of the divisions lack any tactical support and intelligence. How the hell didn't our sensors notice enemy ninjas getting so close to our base? An AIM ninja protested. Who knows? Now shut up and keep fighting, Akiri Kunoichi replied. We need to push them back. Suddenly, the ground started to shake, and a giant snake burst from the floor, sending the poor ninjas that were standing on that spot flying in multiple directions. The snake then opened its huge jaws, and more Oto ninjas poured from its mouth. Gus, that explains how they were able to evade our sensors, Irika bitterly said. Damn! A giant snake means that Orochimaru is here, a Konoha ninja cried. Hokage-sama. We need your help. Don't call for the Hokage, you idiot. Irika chastised his fellow Konoha ninja. Don't you realize that maybe that's what the enemy wants? Orochimaru isn't the only one who's able to summon snakes, a feminine voice said. Wood release, deep forest emergence. The earth started to shake again, and this time, multiple wooden roots grew around them, forming a small forest almost instantly. The allied ninjas leaped away as soon as they could, but others weren't fast enough to do so, and found themselves trapped when multiple vines and branches wrapped around them. Wood release, deep forest bloom. Flowers started to grow all over the wooden trees and vines, and upon blooming, sprayed a yellow powder into the air. Try to hold your breath, Irika warned, as he covered his mouth and nose with his forearm. Unfortunately, the warning came too late. as most of his companions inhaled it, and soon fell to the ground. Weirdly enough, the Odogakure ninjas were able to stand inside the clouds of pollen, yet they didn't look any worse for the wear. The balaclavas, he thought in realization. They must have air filters inside. Unfortunately for the teacher, he didn't realize of the Odo ninja sneaking behind him until he slammed his elbow onto his neck, knocking him out cold. The battle was over. All the allied ninjas had been neutralized. The commander behind the attack, Hibiko, walked across the small battlefield, examining and nodding in approval of the work her and her men had done. She stopped a few meters in front of the gates of the allied ninja HQ. Nobody else had exited the building after the initial wave of defenders poured from it. Probably because they thought she was trying to lure them to a trap or something. Not that she was going to give them any choice, of course. Jiraiya, come outside and show your face, Hibiko yelled. These ninjas are still alive. If you don't show up, I'm going to start killing them one by one. Fortunately, the artificial human didn't have to wait long for the white-haired Sannin to exit through the building's front gate, hands in the air, trying to ease her into not doing anything rash. Here I am. There's no need for blood to be spilled today, Jiraiya said in a conciliatory tone. His eyes then fixed upon the young woman's face. What do you want, girl? Or better said, what does Orochimaru want? Hibiko bristled upon hearing the name of her creator. However, she was able to rein her more wild impulses in before she could lose her composure. She couldn't afford to make any mistakes here. I'm not working for that man anymore, Hibiko seethed. I'm here of my own volition. I want to Earth release, rock prison. What the dash? After a quick tremor, large rocks burst from underground, slamming into Hibiko and the Odogakure ninjas, trapping them inside stone cocoons, leaving only their heads visible. They struggled to break free, but the rocks were too solid. You think you can waltz in here, harm our ninjas, and make demands to the Supreme Commander? A gruff voice was heard coming from above. Hibiko looked up and saw an old man floating above her. Despite his small size and somewhat comical appearance, she could feel the power that irradiated from his small form. Nice timing, Anoki, Jiraiya thanked the former Tsuchikage, who nodded in return. Make sure the unconscious ninjas are brought inside and tended over. From this point onwards, I can continue by myself. Don't get too cocky. Or lower your guard, Anoki said in an almost chastising tone. I'm aware this girl has some connection to you, but don't let that blind you. Ignoring the Tsuchikage, Jiraiya walked towards the clone of his daughter. Release me at once. Hibiko protested, as she continued to struggle to break free. I think not. It isn't much better to talk like this. I'm usually not that keen on hostage situations. Unless I'm the one keeping the hostages, Jiraiya said. Now, you said that you were no longer working for Orochimaru. Care to elaborate about that? After struggling some more, Hibiko decided to finally give up. Sighing, she looked at Jiraiya in the eye, glaring daggers at him. Orochimaru abandoned my brother to Konoha. He promised that he would rescue him, but he has made no attempts to do so. I want him back, Hibiko told him. Jiraiya let out a mocking laugh. And you thought that if you came here and kidnapped a bunch of our ninjas, I'd trade him for them? I might be young, but I'm not a fool. I only made this to make you come out, Hibiko replied. I brought actual bargaining chips for you. One that can help you end this war. This, naturally, drew Jiraiya's attention. Okay, kid, spill the beans. What is it? If I deem your information worthy, I may release your brother. Sorry, but no. First of all, release me. I won't negotiate with you if I'm unable to move or defend myself, Hibiko demanded. You take me for an idiot? I do that, and you either try to kill me on the spot, or run away, Jiraiya said, crossing his arms. If there's something Orochimaru excels at, that's being a master of escape. And I'm sure you surely picked up a couple things from him. Your brats already defeated me. Am I that threatening to you? Hibiko mocked. I already made many mistakes because I underestimated my enemies. I'm simply being cautious. But I think we can reach a compromise, Jiraiya said, before biting his thumb and making several hand seals. Summoning Jutsu. Jiraiya jumped back and slammed his palm onto the ground, producing a burst of smoke. From the smoke, a giant toad wielding a shield and a Tsunade appeared. Jiraiya then channeled chakra into his fist and slammed it against Hibiko's stone prison, shattering it. Try anything funny, and Gamaken here will make you into his snack, Jiraiya threatened, pointing his thumb at the toad. Now start talking. For your sake, don't make me regret my decision. Hibiko started rolling her shoulders. I have to admit, you're far harsher than I expected. Were you expecting a different treatment? Jiraiya asked. You might look like my daughter, but you aren't Kaida. And as much as it pains me, you are still loyal to Orochimaru. I'm not, she protested, without realizing that she had yelled. She took a deep breath in order to calm herself down. What about those ninjas? Jiraiya asked, nodding at the Otogekier ninjas around them. How are they following you if don't work for Orochimaru anymore? They no longer work for him either. I convinced them to follow me instead, Hibiko said. Orochimaru has his way with words and know how to pick people that would see him as their savior. But once you show them proof of how Orochimaru really is, their loyalty isn't as unshakable as the bastard expected. Now, a token of good faith. These are gifts with no strings attached. Hibiko snapped her fingers, and more Otogekier ninjas hidden among the trees jumped into the open. One carried a giant scroll, while others were holding what appeared to be an unconscious orange-haired large man. Jiraiya paid no attention to the latter, but had an idea of what the large scroll was. Is that the forbidden scroll that a Konoha deserter stole during the Uchiha insurrection and gave it to Orochimaru? Hibiko finished, as if reading the Sanin's mind. The one and only. Well, that might not be accurate anymore, given that Orochimaru probably made copies of it. But I thought you'd appreciate having it back. That's an attentive gesture. Thank you, Jiraiya said. His voice, however, made no effort to hide the fact that that wasn't going to be enough. Still, that wasn't the only thing the cloned woman brought. He finally looked at the unconscious man. Who is that guy? His name is Yugo. We believe him to be the last member of his clan. He possesses a bloodline limit that allows him to draw nature energy and use it to undergo a body transformation. Doing so, however, renders him insanely violent as long as the transformation lasts, Hibiko explained. And before you ask what does he has to with anything, Yugo's DNA is the basis behind Orochimaru's cursed seal. That, naturally, drew Jiraiya's attention. Even if they had means to destroy the cursed seal now thanks to Hinata and Hanabi, the chance of learning how it worked was too good to pass. Not to mention that it would deprive Orochimaru from branding more innocent people with that seal. Plus, having a way to remove it that didn't involve Hinata or Hanabi would be a nice plus. A very valuable asset indeed, Jiraiya said with a nod. And like I said, these two gifts come with no price tag attached. A symbol of my good faith, she insisted. I see. If these aren't your bargaining chips, then what you plan to give me in exchange of your brother has a much greater worth, am I right? Jiraiya asked. Okay, let's hear it. Hibiko smirked, almost expecting that question. I know where Orochimaru is hiding. Silence. Jiraiya fixed his eyes on hers, as if trying to peek into her very soul. Hibiko, meanwhile, continued smirking, as if knowing that she was the one holding all the cards. After a few moments thinking, the Sannin decided to make his counter-move. If what you're saying is true, Jiraiya began, then I can simply have you captured and your mind scanned by a Yamanaka, right? First, yes, what I said is true. Second, you're really bad at bluffing, Hibiko mockingly replied. You have my brother under your custody. You should already know that Orochimaru carved into our skulls protective seals that prevents our minds from being scryed. Otherwise, Orochimaru wouldn't have abandoned my brother so easily. You bring a valid point, Jiraiya replied. Then again, how do we know that the information you have is genuine? You don't know. You'll have to trust me. Then again, it's not that I didn't try to prove I can be trusted, right? Hibiko replied. Your gifts were very nice, but you introduced yourself by attacking my ninjas. That doesn't spell trust to me, Jiraiya rebutted. That might be true, but none of them are seriously injured, much less dead. I knew I wasn't going to make a good impression with bloodshed. Hibiko answered back. However, you shouldn't think about it that much. You win nothing by keeping my brother prisoner. Orochimaru has no use of him. And you could end this war much sooner if you take Orochimaru out of the picture. I'd do it myself, but I'm not strong enough, not by a long shot, to pose a credible threat. So far, only a Kage-level ninja can be a match for him. Hell, not even one, you might need a few. Anyway, what's going to be? Jiraiya looked at the young woman, trying to discern if she was being truthful or not. He could tell, though, that he desperately wanted her brother back. And her anger at Orochimaru seemed genuine. The Snake Sannin wasn't somebody that thought people working under him were human beings worthy of consideration. This was a man who indirectly killed almost 50 babies in his attempt to reproduce would release. Wordlessly, Jiraiya pulled out a small, empty scroll and started writing something. After a couple minutes, he summoned another toad. This one, however, was a palm-sized red toad wearing goggles. Kosuke, go to Konoha and give this to Ibiki Marino, from torture and interrogation, Jiraiya said, as he handed the scroll to the toad. Tell him it's an urgent matter. You got it, the toad said, before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Jiraiya then turned at the silver-haired woman. It's done. I sent orders for your brother to be released and be returned here. Hibiko narrowed her eyes. I won't reveal Orochimaru's location until I see him. I wasn't expecting you to, Jiraiya said, as he turned around and walked towards the HQ building. Now excuse me while I do some preparations. What are you going to do now? Ask Tsunade to come back, Jiraiya said. I'm going to need her in order to make sure that Snake doesn't escape. A couple hours after the attack led by Hibiko, calmness reigned once again in the Ninja Alliance HQ. The allied ninjas had already been healed from any injury by the medics, and the summoned animals were no longer there. Thankfully, it didn't take long for Tsunade to arrive at the HQ building, given that the campsite of the 1st and 2nd Divisions hadn't been stationed that far away. Naturally, the slug Sannin tensed up upon seeing several Hokage ninjas standing around, but given that Jiraiya, as well as many other allied ninjas were also there, and they weren't fighting, she decided not to do anything rash. Here I am, Jiraiya. The message said that it couldn't wait. She then eyed at the balaclava wearing ninjas. Do you mind explaining what the hell's going on? Yes, I imagined you'd have a lot of questions, seeing what's going on. Jiraiya said, before motioning to a white-haired young woman clad in Hokage uniform, minus the balaclava. Meet Hibiko. Hibimaru's sister. She claims she no longer supports Orochimaru, and wants to help us. Tsunade raised an eyebrow, and glanced at the clone of her daughter. Hibiko just stared back, her expression unreadable. I assume she isn't helping us out of the goodness of her heart, Tsunade said. She asked her brother to be released into her custody, Jiraiya explained. She returned the stolen forbidden scroll, and handed us a man with a bloodline limit that's the source of Orochimaru's cursed seal. And given that she claims to know where that bastard is hiding, I decided it's a small price to pay. I see. And are you sure that this brat isn't taking us to a trap? Tsunade asked, eyeing the white-haired clone suspiciously. While those gifts you said she brought were nice, maybe Orochimaru is done with them and doesn't need them anymore. I know, but this is too good an opportunity to pass, Jiraiya said. Besides, I already know what to do in case it happens to be a trap. Supreme Commander, somebody's coming, a ninja warned. From the south. Everybody turned in the direction the watchman had said, and saw a burly man in a black trenchcoat jumping from one tree branch to another. Jiraiya smiled. Ah, Ibiki Marino is here. He came earlier than I expected, Jiraiya said, watching the head of torture and interrogation dashing towards them. Behind him were several masked ANBU, two of them carrying a restrained white-haired man. In no time, Ibiki's party landed in front of the group. Greeting, Hokage-sama. Here's your special delivery, Ibiki said. Thank you. You arrived here pretty quickly. Good, because with the matter at hand we can't afford to waste any time, Jiraiya said with a nod. Hibiko's eyes widened upon seeing her brother, though she was smart enough not to rush him. She merely walked towards him slowly. Hibiko? Hebamaru asked, noticing his sister for the first time. He smiled widely. Oh Hibiko, I knew you wouldn't abandon me. Hibiko smiled back. Orochimaru may abandon you, but I never will as long as I'm alive, she said, before turning at Jiraiya. He doesn't appear to be injured, and he definitely isn't a fake. Alright, release my brother, and Orochimaru's location will be yours. Not so fast, girlie, Jiraiya said. I'm not going to release this guy until you give us the location first. A scowl developed on Hibiko's face. She clenched her fists as she prepared to give the Hokage a piece of her mind, but upon seeing her brother again, she forced herself to calm down. She was so close to get him back, she wasn't going to let anybody, not even herself, to ruin her chance. Grumbling, she pulled a scroll under her flak jacket and tossed it at Jiraiya. The Hokage caught it with one hand and unfurled it. It was a map of the elemental nations. There was a mark on the top part of the cape between the lands of Sound and Waterfall. Jiraiya deduced that's where Orochimaru was hiding. I never thought he would be that far away from the battlefields. If he's really there, then we would have never found him, Jiraiya thought, worry growing with each second. What is the range of that jutsu to allow him to stay that far away? You already have what you wanted. Now release my brother. Hibiko demanded. Jiraiya closed the scroll and nodded at Ibiki. The ANBU quickly undid all the restrainings and removed the chakra-suppressing seals that stopped him from using jutsu. Hebamaru quickly rushed towards her sister, the two of them greeting the other with a hug. I'm so glad to be with you again. And to be out of that horrible cell, Hebamaru whispered. It's okay, brother, it's over, Hibiko said, patting his back. The clone twins broke their hug, and Hibiko turned at Jiraiya. You kept your word. For that, you have my thanks. I wish you luck brining down Orochimaru. Unfortunately, I'm afraid I can't help you anymore. Come on brother, let's leave this place. Hibiko and Hebamaru leaped away, followed by the rest of the Odogakure ninjas, leaving the allied ninjas alone. Meanwhile, Jiraiya, Tsunade and the rest of the allied ninjas went back to the HQ building. Jiraiya immediately broke the hopefully good news of how he had traded one of his prisoners for Orochimaru's potential location to the rest of his advisors. Those are good news, indeed, Chiyo said with a nod. If we can take that man out of the war, Akatsuki will lose their strongest assets. Indeed, Anoki said with a nod. First, we'll need to form a strike team out of our best ninjas. May I suggest sorry, Anoki-san, but no such team will be formed, Jiraiya interrupted him. Only 2 people will go and confront him, Tsunadeheim and myself. What? You can't be serious. Just 2 people? I know. Jiraiya said, raising his hands in self-defense, hoping to calm the others down. I know it sounds harebrained dash beyond harebrained, Chio remarked. But it's the best possible plan, for a multitude of reasons. Jiraiya began. First, Tsunade and I have been his teammates for years. We know him and how his mind works better than anybody. And we're both sages. We're the best suited to fight him. Second, Orochimaru is a master of escape. If he learns that we located him, he will move to somewhere else. That's why the team going after him has to be as small as possible, in order to minimize the chances of him fleeing. Plus we need our best ninjas on the battleground. We also need you here, Supreme Commander, AO interjected. The reason you were given such position was so you would coordinate the war effort. What are we going to do in your absence? Jiraiya looked around, as he was trying to think of a potential substitute. His eyes then landed on the former Tsuchikage. Anoki, given that among all of us, you're already a veteran with 3 wars on his belt, so you're the most fit for it, I hereby name you acting Supreme Commander as long as I'm busy hunting Orochimaru down. Anoki smirked a little. Things must be serious if you, a Konoha ninja, is relinquishing your position to an IWA ninja. Temporarily relinquishing my position, Jiraiya insisted, as he narrowed his eyes. Sure. I'm past the age of having lust for power. Don't worry, you can count on me, Anoki said with a nod. Going back to your previous point, Chio intervened. Even if it's just the 2 of you, Akatsuki has many spies and watchers. The chances of you being spotted are still there. Yes, but if it's the 2 of us, he won't run away. Because Tsunade has something Orochimaru desires more than anything else, Jiraiya said, turning towards his wife. Even if nobody said anything, the answer was obvious, the Rinnegan. Tsunade, however, didn't appear that convinced. She walked towards her husband, and began to whisper him. Jiraiya, you already used the Rinnegan as a bait to lure an enemy out once, and look what happened, Tsunade told him, sounding a little upset. Do you want to take that risk again? The situation is different this time. I may be using the Rinnegan as bait again, but as a bait that can punch back. Come on, princess, we could beat Orochimaru ourselves even if you didn't have that Rinnegan, Jiraiya insisted, the volume of his voice matching hers. This is an opportunity too good to pass. Tsunade sighed. She wanted to exercise more caution, but she knew that caution wouldn't win the war or save potential lives, only decisive actions would do that. All right. We'll do as you say, Tsunade agreed. Excellent. We'd better head out immediately. We'll take a few days to reach Orochimaru's hideout, Jiraiya said. And the sooner we take him down, the sooner this war will come to an end. A couple days later, Land of Lightning. It seemed that, after numerous attempts at breaking into the Land of Fire, Akatsuki had directed their latest attack into the Land of Lightning. Rather than crossing underground through the Land of Frost like they did in previous battles, this time they decided to use a coastal invasion. Given that neither the Zetsu clones nor the reanimations needed to breathe, they walked through the sea floor until they arrived at the coast. Fortunately, Raza's 4th Division was in the area to put a stop to their advance. They managed to arrive just in time to stop them from tainting the Land of Lightning with their presence. The 4th Kazekage and the division's foremost ninjas were at the front, looking at the incoming mass of enemies. So far, mostly white Zetsu, and a few reanimations here and there, Raza observed. It seems Akatsuki lost those moon puppets for good. Darui, who was besides him, clicked his tongue. Damn it, I'm seeing a familiar face there. Raza turned at the Raikage's right-hand man, and raised an eyebrow. A friend or family of yours? Not exactly, Darui said, pointing to a pair of undead Kumo ninjas waddling through the water. They were tall and imposing, and completely identical, if it wasn't for the different colors of their headdress-like hairs. Those are Kinkaku and Ginkaku, 2 of Kumo's most infamous ninjas. They're as powerful as they're sadistic. Just lovely, Raza said, rolling his eyes. Orochimaru has a vast knowledge of every village's best ninjas. That man's far from a dullard, Darui noted. Any idea on how are we going to beat them? Raza asked, sounding a little exasperated. Like I said, they're strong, skilled, and are used to being overwhelmed by numbers, Darui explained. Fortunately, I'm very familiar with them and their fighting style. I feel I can take one of them down, but I can't match the two of them together, so I'll need strong backup, Commander. How about if we separate them? Raza suggested. Many people already tried that in the past, it rarely worked. In fact, they will expect it, Darui replied, making the rakage to curse something under his breath. Fortunately, we have no shortage of powerful ninjas here. Darui replied. My 3 children are also sages as well. But I'd wish I didn't have to waste them on a couple of enemies when there are so many to beat, Raza complained. They're getting closer. Sorry, but we have to fight them now before they get close to the coast, Darui said, as he took a step forward. With your permission, I'll deliver the first strike. I have the perfect jutsu for it. Alright, I'll prepare and dash, Raza said, before something in the sky caught his eye. Hey, what's that? Waichoo! A scream was heard from the sky above, as an horrifical-looking white bird swooped down. Riding it was a man with long blonde hair wearing an Akatsuki cloak. Missed me, you bitches. And Deidara didn't came alone. An horde of flying Zetsus trailed behind him. Soon the air was filled with a cacophony of flapping wings and hollering. Darui-san, change of plans. Raza said, as golden started to pour from the canisters attached to his belt. Whatever you were planning to do, aim to that guy in the sky. Got it. Darui replied, as his hands weaved hand seals as fast as he could. So dull. I was planning to start with the Black Panther, but that won't work on an aerial opponent. Anyway, try this on for size. Storm Release, Laser Circus. Darui brought his hands together, their index and middle fingers aiming upwards. A spear of white energy formed around his fingers, before it exploded outwards into a multitude of beams towards Deidara and the flying Zetsu. Alongside Darui, many ninjas in the first line of defense also fired elemental jutsu into the fire. However, most of them missed their marks, since the winged Zetsu proved to be too nimble. Darui's jutsu fared a little better. The energy beams hit Deidara's giant clay bird, as well as many of the Zetsu surrounding him. However, the blonde Akatsuki member managed to jump before his aerial mount went down, and summoned an even larger dragon made of clay. Heh, not bad, Deidara said, as he fed the mouths in his hands some explosive clay. They quickly chew it, before being spat in the shape of small birds. You're not bad with explosions and destruction. But you're nothing but an amateur compared to me. Now taste my art. Deidara waved his arms outwards, releasing a flock of small clay birds. Then, all of a sudden, there was a chain of multiple bursts of smoke, and the clay birds had multiplied tenfold. They spread out and dived at the ninjas below them, detonating when they touched the ground, producing a chain of explosions that killed any ninja that was caught directly in them and sent flying those lucky enough to survive the initial blast. Everybody, move forward. I can make a path with my art. Deidara commanded, as he prepared another salvo of explosive clay birds. Commander, those explosions created breaches in our formation. Darui told Raza. What are your orders? Shit. Raza cursed, as he formed a shirlet of golden sand. Everybody, fall back. We need to regroup and rebuild our ranks. Ninja Alliance HQ as the 4th Division fought Akatsuki, AO, and other sensors were monitorizing the battle. The eye-patch-wearing Kirigakure ninja frowned upon seeing how badly the battle had begun. Flying Zetsu. It's been a while since we had to deal with those pests, AO thought. Anoki-sama, the Kazekage's division, is having troubles with the Akatsuki. Apparently, they've been surprised by a battalion of winged Zetsu, and they've been forced to abandon the coast and fall back into the mainland. Should we deploy our air force? The old IWA ninja frowned deeply. It didn't take long for a difficult battle to present itself as soon as he was given temporary command. Fortunately, Anoki wasn't a newcomer to this kind of situations, as his more than half a century of experience could attest. How big this Zetsu battalion is? Anoki asked. It is as big as the other times? No. I appears to be at half the numbers this time, Anoki-sama, AO told him. Anoki grumbled something, looking pensive. After a few moments that felt longer than they were, the former Tsuchikage opened his mouth. This smells like a trap. That clone brat already proved that our location is more vulnerable than it looks. Maybe they want us to send our air force to face them, and then send the other half to another target. Still, we can't afford to lose ground to these criminals, Chio intervened. We should send at least some of our flying forces to reinforce our positions in the coast. It sounds reasonable, but we can't just dash, Anoki-sama. The Akatsuki Deidara is leading their air force. AO announced, interrupting the former Tsuchikage. Anoki's face contorted into a mask of unbridled anger. What? He roared. Send our air force. All of them. I want that bastard dead before the end of the day, you hear me? Silence followed the Tsuchikage's out-of-nowhere outburst, as those present wondered if there was more to Deidara besides being a mere IWA missing nin. AO was among them, but he simply nodded and carried his orders. Send a note to the ninja allied air forces. Move towards the designated coordinates. Back in the land of Lightning Coast, as the defenders were pushed back into the mainland, while Akatsuki's forces rushed in and engaged the allied ninjas in hand-to-hand combat. Meanwhile, Deidara led the flying Zetsu into attacking the allied ninja from above. While the Zetsu merely swooped down and tried to slash a ninja with their sharp talons, Deidara dropped a cluster of explosives towards the densely packed zones, not caring that some Zetsu were caught in the blast, leaving both friend and foe as charred corpses, or sending them flying into the air. Many times the allied ninjas tried to bring him down with ranged jutsu, but the blonde was fast enough to avoid them. Sorry, you're earthbound losers. Deidara laughed as his dragon durbled between a stream of fire and a barrage of rocks. But you won't stop me from sharing my art. A battle is the perfect blank canvas for me to use. Deidara dropped another salvo of explosives, resulting in another chain of blasts. When the smoke vanished, there were more allied ninjas and white Zetsu either dead or injured. Among them, however, there was also a large dome of ice, with several cracks on it. The dome then quickly fell apart into multiple ice shards that quickly met lead, revealing Haku, Kurenai, Yakumo, and Hotaru. Nice work, Haku, Kurenai praised her student, as her eyes fixed on the flying Deidara. Should we go after him? Haku asked her sensei. I believe that, until the Air Force arrives, we're the only ones able to deal with him. I will deal with that psychopath myself, Kurenai said. I need you to stay here and watch over Yakumo. As you say. Still, I can't help but feel worried that this opponent might be too formidable, Haku insisted. After all, we did fight him together the last time, and proved to be a match to our combined power. I'm aware of that. Don't worry, I'll ask for help if I feel overwhelmed, Kurenai said with a nod, as her hands weaved hand seals. Still, given that I have fought him quite a few times, I think I can defeat him this time around. Wind release, riding the hurricane. A tornado developed under Kurenai's legs, pushing her into the air as it grew, allowing the Genjutsu mistress to fly into the air, and went to meet Deidara. Both Hotaru and Yakumo were watching the jutsu in awe. Whoa, I didn't know Kurenai-sensei knew how to fly. Yakumo said. Yeah, that's sure some jutsu. Hotaru agreed. Naruto was the one to invent that jutsu, Haku corrected them. He taught it to both Kurenai-sensei and myself, since Hinata-san can fly on her own. Unfortunately, I can't use it since it consumes chakra to keep it active, and my reserves aren't that big. Anyway, we can talk about that later. There's a battle we need to win, Haku urged the girls. In another part of the battlefield, the Gold and Silver brothers, Kinkaku and Ginkaku, were laying waste to the allied ninjas with a combination of brutal taijutsu and ninjutsu. None of the attackers were even able to land a hit on them. Lightning release, golden spear. Yellow lightning appeared around Kinkaku's hand, which condensed into the shape of a spear. Swinging his elemental weapon in wide arcs, Kinkaku parried the blows and ranged jutsu allied ninjas sent his way, while at the same time stabbing and slashing those who were close to him. Wind release, silver swords. Two swords made of wind appeared on Ginkaku's hand, and when the silver-haired brother swung them, they released blades of wind of powerful cutting power, slicing through rocks and human meat alike. This rubbish is hardly worth the effort, Kinkaku, the younger brother said. Indeed, Jinakaku, the older brother agreed. He then stabbed his lightning spear into the ground, releasing a barrage of lightning bolts through the earth in every direction, shattering the earth, and electrocuting the unlucky allied ninjas caught in the area of effect. But keep fighting. Maybe we may find somebody worthy of us among all these rabble. Water release, great water wall. Suddenly, the two brothers found themselves about to be crushed by a gigantic wave of water rushing towards them. However, they were fast enough to jump away the moment the wave came crashing down, and skidded on the rushing water skillfully. However, that water attack was merely a distraction for the true ambush. What the? Kinkaku asked, noticing golden glittering in the air. Gold? Brother? Magnet release, golden sand coffin. Suddenly, a mass of golden sand formed around them, and started to swirl. Kinkaku was fast enough to jump away, but his silver-haired brother wasn't, and was quickly trapped inside a cocoon of golden sand. Ginkaku, the golden-haired man, yelled. Darui, go, a voice said. He didn't have time to mourn his brother's fate, as a dark-skinned Kumobikure ninja wielding a wide cleaver crackling with electricity leaped at him. Kinkaku parried the attack with his lightning spear. They traded blows with one another, until Kinkaku's lightning spear succumbed to Darui's fast and powerful, shattering into 1,000 golden sparks. Kinkaku disengaged his foe, and jumped backwards. Not bad, the Kazekage said, as he landed beside Darui. We got one of them, at the very least. It would have better if we dealt with the two of them in one swift strike, but this will have to do, Darui replied, as he eyed at the golden-haired man. Just one of them is quite the dull opponent for the two of us. Who are you calling dull, you disrespectful brat? Kinkaku yelled, as he pointed an angry finger at him. Do you have any idea of I am? I don't think there are any Kumo ninjas who don't know you too, Kinkaku-sama, Darui said in a tone that was somehow a mix between mocking and respectful. But right now, who you are doesn't matter. All what matters is that you're a threat to the Ninja Alliance, so sorry, but you're going down. I might not be from Kumo, but I got good intel on you, Raza added. And with your brother gone, you have no chance to defeat us. Oh? You think so? Kinkaku asked, grinning widely as if he knew something Raza and Darui ignored. He then opened his mouth wide, and regurgitated what appeared to be a large red and white fan. Darui's visible eye widened upon seeing the fan. Is that? Raza also tensed up, guessing that such thing wasn't a mere fan. Coil of wind. Kinkaku swung his fan, releasing an unbelievably powerful gust of wind that blew not only Raza and Darui back, but many of the ninjas and white Zetsu clones close to them. And more importantly, it destroyed the sand prison Ginkaku was trapped in, leaving him free to move again. Wasting no time, he quickly jumped back towards his brother, while Darui and Raza got back on their feet. Shit! Raza cursed. That thing was strong enough to undo my golden sand coffin from that distance, the Kazekage growled. That's the banana palm fan, a legendary tool that it's said to be created by the Sage of the Six Paths himself, Darui began to explain. By merely swinging it, it can create an extremely powerful and wide elemental attack of any of the 5 basic elements. That sounds like a lot of trouble, Raza said. And if Kinkaku has the fan, then Darui trailed off. Indeed, the now released Ginkaku produced a strange white broadsword whose corners were shaped like flames, a large gourd, and a rope that glowed with a golden light, tied to that gourd. Then, as if it had life of its own, the rope wrapped itself around Kinkaku's free arm. Of course they have the other three tools, Darui said, his eye narrowing at them. Let me guess, something I should worry about. Short answer, yes. Sorry if I don't give you any details, but it would take far too much time we don't have, Commander, Darui replied. For the time being, all you need to know is this: don't let that rope touch you. Understood, Raza replied. Kinkaku and Ginkaku both grinned, and prepared to attack. They tried to separate us, Ginkaku, the older brother said. Indeed, Kinkaku. I didn't like that, the younger brother replied, baring his teeth. Not in the slightest. Neither did I. I say, let's give them a taste of their own medicine. Kinkaku slammed the banana palm fan into the ground. Coil of earth. The jutsu manifested into a row of rocks as large as one-story houses bursting from underground towards Raza and Darui, forcing the two living ninja to jump into different directions to avoid the attack. And before he could even land, Ginkaku was already on top of him, sword raised. Darui was able to block the blow, but not the brutal roundhouse kick following it, which sent him crashing against the ground. And while Darui struggled against Ginkaku, Raza had to deal with the golden-haired brother. Magnet release, golden sand shuriken. Grains of golden sand gathered in front of Raza, taking the shape of shuriken, which flew towards the undead ninja. Kinkaku's mouth twisted into a grimace. I don't like you. No one has the right to use gold against me, much less some Tsunade desert cockroach. Kinkaku roared, as he swung the fan again. Coil of fire. The fan produced a massive cone of flames that quickly melted Raza's golden shuriken, forcing the Kazekage to jump backwards in order to avoid the fiery attack. He felt a chill travel down his spine as Kinkaku grinned at him. And unfortunately, he was so focused on his enemy that they didn't notice Darui flying towards him until the Kumo ninja crashed into the Kazekage. They're yours, brother. Ginkaku shouted. Good job, Ginkaku. Kinkaku said, as he rushed towards the fallen duo, who got back on their feet as fast as they could. The golden rope around his arm uncoiled, and he swung it against them as if it was a whip. Raza and Darui were hit before they could jump away. Bind and draw out, golden canopy rope. Raza and Darui felt like something was traveling their throats and forced itself out of their mouths, and much to their horrors, they looked what appeared to be their very souls. My turn. Curse them, 7-star sword. Record the crimson gourd. Ginkaku said, as he cut a piece of their souls with his large cleaver, and finally, said pieces were absorbed into his gourd. 2 words appeared on the flat side of the 7-star sword. Dull sand, well shit, Darui cursed. Meanwhile, not far away from there, the Sand siblings were fighting against an horde of advancing white Zetsu clones, some of them who were rushing towards Temari. The blonde Kunoichi smirked, and wounded her fan back. Sicko Weasel Jutsu. Swinging her fan in a wide arc, Temari produced a powerful gust of wind that blew them away, aside from making several deep cuts into their flesh. She turned around to face another potential group of attackers, when something in the sky caught her eye. It wasn't those flying Zetsu or Deidara, but several greenish-yellow projectiles, leaving a trail of dust of the same color, flying in an arc towards them. Temari, watch out! The Suna Kunoichi heard Kankuro calling. Tomatsu, Kankuro's puppet that carried a large shield, landed beside Temari, and covered her with its shield, its seals glowing with a blue light as chakra activated them. Mechanical Great Light Shield Block. The glowing seals projected a blue cone of chakra that protected Temari just in time for the acid spore missiles landed upon her. The projectiles harmlessly crashed against the shield and disintegrated. Nice save, Temari thanked her brother, as she swooped at the direction the projectiles had came from. Even if they were hard to notice among the large crowd of enemies, the blonde kunoichi could see several Zetsu clones whose right arms were several vines braided around each other, ending in a large flower. Those bastards brought some snipers as well to pick us off from the distance. Then we better get rid of them. Kenkuro replied, while he was directing the Sasori puppet with his other hand, making it burn some of the Zetsu clones with its palm-mounted flamethrowers. Gaara, you come with us? The reed head was also fighting the artificial cloned creatures, burying them in sand, or slicing them with blades of sand. However, only part of his attention was in this battle, as most of it looked at how Kurenai was engaging Deidara in an aerial fight. Even if Gaara's face was as stoic as ever, anger was growing within him as he remembered the last time he faced the IWA missing Nin. That battle costed him his village's tailed beast, and almost his life. No. I saw another enemy more worthy of my attention, Gaara said, as a sandstorm started to form around him, and he started to float as a cloud of sand started to form under his feet. I'm sure you will manage without me. Just when Gaara was about to leave, both he and his siblings were caught by a powerful wind that threatened to pull them away. The Sand siblings directed chakra to their feet in order to attach themselves to the ground. What the hell's going on? Kenkuro asked. Following the directing of the wind, Temari found the answer. Over there. There was a giant animal, probably a summon, vaguely looking like an elephant with orange fur, huge tusks, and the legs of a feline predator. Its mouth was open wide, creating a suction force in the form of a strong, continuous wind that pushed the Suna ninjas towards its mouth. And rising on the head of the animal was a black-haired old man with a scarred chin and a Sharingan on his left eye. What the hell's that thing? A summon? Temari asked, as she stabbed her folded war fan into the ground for anchoring herself better. And who the hell is that guy? Kenkuro asked, as he forced his mind to recall if he ever saw him in the past. Wait, is that a Sharingan? The man on top of the vacuuming summoned animal started to make hand seals. Wood release, deep forest emergence. Just as the orange animal closed its mouth, stopping the suction force, multiple wooden roots emerged around the Sand siblings, threatening to trap them. The fuck? Kenkuro loudly yelled. Who the hell is that guy? Gaara. Temari called, ignoring the puppeteer's question. The reed head nodded, and waved his hand. Sandstorm shield. A tornado of sand formed around the trio of Suna ninjas, protecting them from the incoming wooden vines. They grinded against the sandstorm, grinding against it in an attempt to bypass it, but found themselves unable to. That didn't stop the Jutsu's caster, who made a hand seal and pumped more chakra into the attack, summoning even more wooden vines from the seemingly barren desert land. That moment, the man flinched, and noticed that the air around him was starting to become colder at a rapid pace. Stopping the jutsu, he jumped away. Ice release, certain kill ice spears. Multiple giant spears made of ice formed above the summoned animal and its rider, before they fell down, hitting the animal and undoing the summon, but failing to impale the man. You were right, Yakumo-san. That's Danzo right there, Haku said, as he and Yakumo landed beside the sandstorm. Danzo turned around, and fixed his eyes on Yakumo, making the girl flinch a little. His expression, however, was as stoic and emotionless as ever. Akuma. So you're alive, Danzo commented. I wasn't expecting to see you here. Yakumo. My name is Yakumo, the girl angrily protested. Don't even dare to call me by that horrible codename ever again. Just as I feared. So, you turned your back on me en route. After everything we did for you, Danzo replied. He looked around, as if he was trying to assess the situation. Then again, given what's going on, I doubt that either Konoha or any of the ninja villages is going to survive this conflict. Do you underestimate Konoha that much, Danzo? Haku asked, sounding visibly angered. Do you really think it's going to go down that easily? Konoha used to be great when the Senju brothers ruled it. But they made the mistake of letting Hiruzen take the reins of leadership, Danzo said, as he started to make hand seals. Wind release, vacuum sphere. Danzo spat several bullets made of compressed air from his mouth at Haku and Yakumo, who were forced to jump in different directions in order to avoid the attack. The ice release user started to make hand seals. First of all, let's neutralize that Sharingan. Water release, hiding in the mist jutsu. Haku took a deep breath and released a huge cloud of mist from his mouth. The mist engulfed the entire area, engulfing the three combatants, leaving them blinded. If you hope to defeat me, you'll need more than such a basic trick, Danzo replied, as he started to make hand seals. Wind release, great breakthrough. Danzo exhaled a powerful gust of wind from his mouth, quickly pushing the mist away, leaving the battlefield the same as a moment ago. While Danzo could see Haku, Yakumo was nowhere to be seen. This didn't seem to faze the leader of Root in the slightest, who continued to make hand seals. Wood release, wood binding jutsu. Wooden vines and roots emerged from underground, wiggling and lashing angrily as if they were alive. However, rather than lunging at Haku, they all wrapped around the undead Root ninja, immobilizing him completely. How dash! Well done, Yakumo, Haku said, as he started to form more hand seals of his own. Ice release, breath of winter. Haku took a deep breath, and releasing a huge cloud of frigid fog, covering the ground in a thin layer of ice as it spread and moved towards Danzo. However, the former leader of Root was far from defenseless. Even if he was restricted, he was able to pull a kunai and throw it in front of him. His Sharingan caught his reflection on the blade for a fraction of a second, but that was enough to cast a genjutsu that was reflected at him. Said genjutsu overrode the one Yakumo put him into, breaking the illusionary restraints and jumping away before Haku's jutsu could freeze him completely. What? Haku asked in shock. Yakumo reappeared beside him, just as surprised. How did he manage to break? Don't forget who trained you to use your power, girl, Danzo said to the brown-haired Kunoichi, his voice cold as Haku's ice. You wouldn't think I'd pick a thing or two about how to counter it just in case? Even if I had the mistaken belief that all my agents were completely loyal to me, I always made sure to have a way to counter their abilities in case they turned against me. While only appearing once every couple generations, the Kurama clan's brand of genjutsu was one of the most feared bloodline limits who ever existed, given not only was it a genjutsu that could cause bodily harm to the victim, but it was impossible to break using conventional genjutsu dispelling techniques. Not even the Sharingan or the Byakugan were enough to counter it. But alas, while normal means didn't work, it wasn't impossible to break. Given that genjutsu affected the chakra of the mind, Danzo came up with an idea to counter it. Use Yamanaka mind jutsu to alter his own mind in order to shield himself from said genjutsu, or at least lower its effects on him. And luckily for Danzo, one of his elite and most trusted agents, Fu, was a member of the Yamanaka clan. In no time, the two of them came up with a series of ways to use the Yamanaka's jutsu to undo Yakumo's genjutsu. Of course, Danzo was smart enough not to share such information with anybody. He was tempted to kill Fu in order to leave no loose ends, but in the end he decided against it. Fu was one of his most effective minions, and replacing him wouldn't be easy. Yakumo's face twisted into a grimace of anger. She clapped her hands together. You think so? Let's see how well you do against this then. Demonic illusion, Hell's Cape. From Danzo's perspective, the entire battleground burst into flames, with the sky turning red with black clouds, as Earth had turned into hell itself. Danzo could feel how the air's temperature raised instantly as the fires spread around. Still, his expression was unfazed. An impressive jutsu, Akuma. I always wondered what our enemies felt when they were caught inside one of your illusionary traps, and now I can experience it myself, Danzo said, before nodding. I made a truly outstanding job with you. Is that pride I'm sensing? I thought you believed that ninjas shouldn't have emotions, Haku retorted. Misplaced pride, may I add. Am I being prideful? Perhaps. It's not that my current predicament can get any worse, Danzo said, his voice remaining stoic. Then again, I'm going to make the most of a bad situation, and use this fortuitous encounter to punish a traitor to Root. You're welcome to try, you decrepit monster. Yakumo defiantly replied. This has to be a punishment for my extreme foolishness in life, Harasame bitterly thought. That was the only explanation the bespectacled Kirigakure Jonin could come up with for his current predicament. One moment, he was trying to extract the 6 tails from his precious student, then there was darkness, and then he was among the living again, only he was unable to control his body, and was forced to fight against what appeared to be a coalition of all 5 great villages and some minor ones. Alongside more deceased ninjas raised as zombies, Harasame recognized a few he knew they were dead, and an army of weird plant-like, chalk-skinned humanoid creatures with green hair, called White Zetsu. Clones. And as much as he tried not to fight, he was unable to. His will wasn't strong enough to reclaim control of his body. Sealing art, Mark of Thunder. Harasame slammed his hand into the ground, and a lot of circular sealing patterns started to spread around him, glowing with a white and intermittent patterns. Watch out, don't step inside the circle of seals, Harasame warned. If he couldn't control his body, at least he'd try to minimize the damage he was forced to commit. If you do AIGGH. The screams of many ninjas who didn't hear him filled the air, as they stepped on the seals accidentally or didn't see them form, causing the seals to produce an electric discharge, shocking their bodies into paralysis. Their screams didn't end there, as many nearby White Zetsu clones took advantage of the situation, and moved for the kill. Harasame sighed, lamenting the more deaths he was being complicit. I'm sorry, I just he was interrupted when he saw multiple bubbles headed into their general direction. The White Zetsu merely stared at them dumbly, while Harasame's eyes opened wide in shock, and felt his legs forcing him to jump backwards. This jutsu. The bubbles glowed with a blue light, before they detonated, obliterating the Zetsu. There's no doubt. It was his jutsu. He must be here, Harasame said. Fortunately, whoever was controlling him agreed with him and decided to take him towards the caster of that jutsu. A few moments earlier, while this wasn't the first fight Hataru had been in, it was her first big battle for sure. Still, she decided that she shouldn't bite more than she could chew, and stick to fighting enemies that weren't too strong, like those White Zetsu clones. Time to use these jutsu I developed. This is for you, sensei, Hataru whispered, as she took Hidakata's old bubble, and blew several bubbles while infusing them with chakra. Water release, explosive bubbles. The bubbles flew towards a group of White Zetsu who just had fallen several allied ninjas, and detonated. The explosion obliterated them. Yes. Hataru cheered. But her cheers turned into a deep when several kunai flew from the resulting cloud of smoke, forcing her to jump back in order to avoid them. A man emerged from the cloud of smoke, a Kirigakure middle-aged ninja wearing glasses. You, girl. Me? Hataru asked. That jutsu. Where did you learn it? The man asked. It's a jutsu my sensei used to use. I copied it by watching him, Hataru replied, taking a defensive stance. Why do you want to know? I used to have a student who had a similar jutsu. Using bubbles to fight isn't something many ninjas use, the old man replied. Was your sensei a tall, slim man, with brown hair, a bang covering one of his eyes? Named Hidakata? Yes, that was him. Hataru replied. You know about him? Yes, I did. Far better than most, the man replied, now sounding sorrowful. My name is Harasame, and I used to be Hidakata's sensei. Harasame? Hataru repeated, as her eyes grew wide. She remembered that name. Once Hidakata started to opening up to her, Yudakata revealed that the reason behind his defection was how his sensei betrayed him and tried to remove the tailed beast inside him for some unknown purpose. Then why dash, watch out, girl, I'm going to attack. Harasame interrupted her, as his hand started to fly through hand seals. Water release, water wall. Hataru didn't just stay there and waited for the attack to hit her. She blew more bubbles as she spun around her heels. Water release, bubble barrier. The bubbles merged around her into a single, giant bubble that held Hataru inside, just when Harasame expelled a torrent of water from his mouth. The torrent hit the protective bubble, but despite its apparent frailty, it managed to hold the attack back before it burst. Well done, girl. Yudakata trained you well, Harasame said, as he pulled a kunai and dashed towards Hataru. The blonde-haired woman parried the attack with the bubble pipe, which, like the bubbles it blew, proved to be far sturdier than it looked. Thanks. Yudakata was a great sensei, Hataru said, as she pushed Harasame back, and delivered a powerful kick to his stomach, making him tumble backwards. The best sensei I could ever have. Where is he now? Harasame replied, as he regained his balance. He didn't miss how Hataru was talking in past tense, and he was fearing the worst. Unfortunately, he is no longer with us, Hataru replied, as her hands flashed through hand seals, before blowing more bubbles. Killed by the very same people who plunged the world into another war. Water release, dancing bubble flight. More chakra-charged bubbles flew towards Harasame. The undead Kiri ninja pulled out several shuriken with one hand while making one-handed seals with the other hand. Lightning release, lightning shuriken. Harasame threw the electricity-imbued steel stars towards the incoming bubbles. However, when they were about to hit them, they moved as if they had life on their own, dodging the attack. The bubbles homed into the undead ninja, forcing him to retreat. He threw more kunai and shuriken towards the bubbles, but they kept moving around, dodging and evading his attacks. What's with this jutsu? Yudakata never had anything like this. Harasame thought, as his body moved on his own. Maybe this girl is strong enough to beat me? One bubble managed to land on his leg, blowing it up, stopping him on his tracks, and allowing the rest of the bubbles to reach their target, resulting in a chain of explosions. Did I get him? Yes. Hataru cheered, pumping her fist into the air. However, when the smoke from the explosions dispelled, all there was a charred log. Hataru's face dropped. Of course, there's no way a newbie like myself is going to take down Yudakata-sensei's Jonin-sensei. Unfortunately, you're right, Harasame's voice said from behind her. Hataru quickly turned around, and adopted a defensive stance. I know it must not be the best moment to ask, but understand I have no other opportunity to ask this. Did your sensei told you about me? About what happened between us? Harasame pulled several kunai and threw them at Hataru. Hataru grabbed her bubble pipe and used it to deflect them as well as she could. Yes. He told me you wanted to extract the tailed beast inside him. Hataru replied. He never understood why did you betray him. Harasame sighed, looking between sad and ashamed. No wonder he reacted the way he did. It might not look like it, but I was trying to help my student. The 6 tails I knew how much of a burden it was for him. I was afraid that he wouldn't be able to carry it. That's why I wanted to relieve him from that burden. Help him? How? Hataru yelled. Extracting the tailed beast would have killing him. I know. That's why I spent years researching a way to extract a tailed beast without killing the host. Harasame replied. His excitement, however, was brief. But looking back, I think I was blinded by my enthusiasm. I couldn't even tell if the extraction method would have worked as intended. Guess it was a good thing I was the one who died and not him. Then, all of a sudden, Harasame burst into a puddle of water. A clone? No. Hataru looked around, trying to find the real one. Water release, Water Dragon Bullet Jutsu. Hataru was alerted by a roar, and out of nowhere a serpentine dragon made of water attempted to ram into her from one of the flanks. Hataru jumped backwards, dodging the initial onslaught. However, the dragon twisted its body and charged its head at her again, forcing the blonde kunoichi to be the one onto the defensive. Water release, bubble dome. Hataru blew more bubbles around herself, which merged into one large bubble, just in time as the dragon slammed into her. Even if the bubble didn't break, the dragon carried enough force to move it, slamming it against a tree. The force of the impact caused the tree to topple, and Hataru's protective bubble burst. Fortunately, the Kiri kunoichi was barely hurt. "You're strong, girl. Utakata had trained you well," Harasame said, as he landed in front of her. "But I'm afraid his training won't be enough to defeat me. Fall back if you wish to live. Or return with reinforcements. My student is dead, and I can't help but feel it was my fault. I don't want his student's death on my conscience." Hataru's first reaction was to protest, to tell that man not to underestimate her. But then she remembered Utakata's last words to her, live. "Enjoy life to its fullest, don't be chained by the past, and make sure that when your time comes, you can look back and smile knowing you have no regrets." Hataru gritted her teeth as she fought tears. As much as she didn't want to, she couldn't risk her life against this man. If she died, then Utakata-sensei's sacrifice would have been in vain. She reached into her ninja tool pouch, pulled out a smoke bomb, and used the ensuing cloud of smoke as a cover to fall back from the enemy. Meanwhile, high into the air, Deidara and the flying Zetsu continued their assault on the allied ground forces. "You can run, you cry, but there's no escape from my art," Deidara hollered as he prepared yet another salvo of clay bombs. Wind release, great breakthrough. Suddenly, Deidara's clay dragon was hit by a powerful gust of wind, causing him to lose balance and drop all his clay explosives to the ground. "Everybody down there, vacate the area." "Those are bombs," a female voice said. Deidara turned around, his one visible eye angrily narrowing at the one who dared to get in the way of his art, and much to his growing rage, it was the same raven-haired Konoha ninja that had been a thorn to his side lately. She was no longer wearing that red shirt with the white bandage-like dress, but a standard Konoha uniform. "You again. The goddamn genjutsu bitch," Deidara yelled, glaring at the floating Kurenai. "How rude," she said, rolling her eyes, but smiling at the thought of making the missing nin so mad. "Though, I can assure you that that wasn't a genjutsu." "Oh really? Well, hey, wait a second," Deidara said, finally noticing something. "How the hell are you flying on your own? Is that another genjutsu?" Kurenai smirked in a taunting manner. "Perhaps. Why don't you come and find if I'm real or not? If you can trust your senses, that's it." Release. Deidara made a hand seal while sending a burst of chakra through his body in order to cleanse any illusion placed on him. Kurenai was still floating in front of him. "So you're real after all. Well, even if you know how to fly without the help of the ice girl, you aren't a match for me if you're alone." Deidara thrust both hands forward, releasing several clay insects that flew towards the genjutsu mistress. Kurenai was forced to fly away. She grabbed a handful of shuriken from her ninja tool pouch and tossed them at the incoming clay creatures, nailing them with complete accuracy, causing them to prematurely explode. A shadow alerted Kurenai of a threat coming from above. Looking up, the genjutsu mistress saw Deidara's dragon above her, just in the moment it spat a ball of clay at her. "Die already!" Kurenai was able to move away just in time to avoid the explosion. The clay dragon, however, continued its assault, firing more explosives at the escaping genjutsu mistress, her ears ringing from enduring the loud noise of the explosions going off so nearby. While he was able to dodge all of them, she was hit by the shock wave of one that blasted dangerously close to her, sending her tumbling towards the ground. Yes. Direct hit, bitch. Deidara cheered, before laughing maniacally. Now do me a favor and splat against the ground below. Kurenai tried not to panic at the thought of her impending death. She knew she only had a few seconds to restabilize the riding the hurricane jutsu before she could hit the ground, and she had to do it as she was tumbling downwards. Come on, you can do it. Kurenai thought, as she tried regain her stance as she pushed more chakra downwards. This can't be my end. Yeah, what the hell? Deidara screamed. That moment, Kurenai's fall was stopped when her back hit something with a round surface. Something that was floating in the air, and slowly moved upwards. It was soft to the touch, but surprisingly solid. And strangely enough, it was wet to the touch. A bubble? Kurenai asked. It was then when she noticed that she was lying on top of a large bubble. Thank goodness I was able to catch you in time, a NW voice said. Kurenai turned around, and saw that Kiri ninja friend of Haku. Hataru, she believed was her name. She was also flying, sitting on top of another large bubble. Kurenai-san, right? Yes, I'm Kurenai, the Genjutsu mistress said. Thanks for the save. I owe you one. You're welcome, Hataru replied, smiling at the Konoha Jonin. She then directed her eyes towards Deidara, riding on his clay dragon, and said smile turned into a frown. Akatsuki. The same people who captured my sensei and those like him. Even if that man didn't do it personally, I feel like I'll be avenging Yudakata sensei if I help you take him down. Your help is appreciated. I thought I would be able to defeat him on my own, but guess I was over my head, Kurenai admitted. She then jumped off the flying bubble, and reactivated her flying jutsu. Wind release, riding the hurricane. Hataru once again blew several bubbles from her pipe after making several seals. Water release, water bubble drift. The bubbles started to float around, quickly growing in size until they reached the same size as the bubble the blonde kunoichi was standing on. You think you can beat me with mere bubbles? Deidara yelled, feeling insulted. Don't you dare to mock me or my art. Deidara tossed a couple of explosive insects at Hataru. The Kiri kunoichi quickly jumped from the bubble just a second before the clay insects detonated, destroying it. Fortunately, the bubbles she had created served as perfect platforms for her. I might not be able to fly like you or Kurenai-san, but I can keep up with you two in the air. Hataru boldly claimed. Ready, Kurenai-san? Kurenai nodded and smiled confidently. Ready as I'd ever be, she said, before shooting Deidara a look of determination. It's about time we end the career of this so-called artist. Magnet release, golden tsunami. Coil of water. Raza summoned a torrent of golden sand to bury the gold and silver brothers under it. However, with a wave of the banana fan, Kinkaku summoned a torrent of water. Both attacks clashed, neither of them overpowering the other, but did its job in stopping Raza's attack. Damn! No matter what I try, that damned fan counters it with an elemental jutsu. Raza mentally cursed. I should ask for help, but if the men see their commander struggling with a single enemy, Darui and Ginkaku were trading blows as they moved across the battlefield, landing on the surface of the impromptu miniature sea Kinkaku had summoned with the banana fan. The silver-haired man was now using the 7-star sword as if it was a normal sword, engaging Darui in a duel of blades. While Darui so far managed to keep up with the undead ninja, he knew it was a matter of time until he grew exhausted and made a mistake. You're not bad, brat. Ginkaku said, his sword locked against Darui's. But if you're the best Kumo can currently offer, I must say that the village must have gone to shit after we died. Darui narrowed his one visible eye, the anger of Ginkaku's insult giving him a brief but vital energy boost to push the undead ninja back, and switched to some genjutsu. You'll be sorry for saying that. Lightning release, Black Thunder Blade. Darui's broadsword started to crackle with black electricity, before tossing it at Ginkaku. The silver-haired man merely smirked, and when the blade was close to him, he parried it with the 7-star sword, tossing it away. Nice try, kid, but dash, storm release, white tiger thunder fawn. Darui brought his hands together, releasing a mass of lightning bolts that flowed like water, all flying towards Ginkaku, before they merged, taking the shape of a tiger. The tiger lunged forward, letting out a roar, as it pounced towards the undead ninja. Ginkaku, however, wasn't fazed, as he simply jumped away in time to dodge the attack. No matter what you try, you won't HUH. Much to his surprise, he saw the cleaver covered in black electricity flying towards him as if it had life on its own. He was fast enough to parry the attack once again, sending the sword away. However, while he was doing that, he didn't see the elemental tiger twisting its body and pouncing towards the undead ninja once again, sinking its claws and fangs onto his body, piercing it. No blood was spilled, but dust and paper bits. Darui calmly walked towards the now immobilized Ginkaku as his cleaver returned to him, casually catching it by the handle. "I'm sorry I had to be so rough, but I hope at least I made you change your opinion on Kumo," Darui began. "That sword, how did you?" Ginkaku asked, as he uselessly struggled against the white tiger. Electricity coursed through his undead body, keeping it paralyzed. Black lightning. You already died long before the man who invented this variant of lightning release rose to prominence, Darui explained. More powerful than normal lightning, as well as more malleable and easy to direct. The trade-off is its heavier chakra cost and not being as fast. But once you master it, it's invaluable. Now, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your time in this world is over. You will be sealed, and then permanently destroyed. Ginkaku was going to open his mouth, when something caught his attention. A huge smirk spread across his mouth, something Darui noticed, which caused the young Kumo Jonin to tense up. "You say you're sorry?" Ginkaku asked, sounding almost excited. "Yes, I am. People say that I apologize a lot, but I can't help it," Darui continued. "Because yes, I'm truly sorry to see capture him, Crimson Gourd." Suddenly, the crimson gourd tied to Ginkaku's waist began to suck Darui in, much to the Kumo ninja's shock. "What? But I didn't say Darui wasn't able to finish what he was saying, and was sealed inside the gourd. With him out of the picture, the elemental tiger keeping Ginkaku down quickly broke down into 1,000 shatters of glittering sparkles, releasing him. Ginkaku got back on his feet, and looked at the 7-star sword. "Heh, who would have guessed?" Ginkaku chuckled. Where there was once written the word dull, now it was replaced with sorry. Meanwhile, as those fights took place, the Sand siblings were still inside the sandstorm Gaara had created in order to shield them from Danzo's attack. Despite Danzo had stopped attacking them, the Kazekage's youngest son had kept the storm active. Unperturbed, the 3 siblings were sitting cross-legged, with their eyes closed, completely immobile and silent. Or they were, until Tamari got back on her feet. "Okay, I think I'm done," Tamari replied. "I hope you guys don't take long. I can sense Dad's in trouble." "I'm done too," Kenkuro replied, getting up as well. "Gaara?" Gaara didn't say anything. He merely opened his eyes, which were now golden instead of teal. Dark blue marks that resembled Shikaku's body marks were around them. He then got up and looked at his elder siblings. Their eyes were also golden, with Tamari having oval-shaped teal marks around theirs, while Kenkuro's marks were angular and crimson. "Yes. I have entered Sage mode as well," Gaara replied. With a wave of his hand, he commanded the sandstorm to stop. "Let our enemies cower in fear at the sight of our new powers." "Hey Ginkaku, are you dealing with these worthless worm?" Ginkaku said, as he landed beside his brother. "I am. He's more resilient than I thought," Ginkaku replied, as his black eyes looked on the angry Raza mockingly. "Say, did you kill your guy or?" "Sealed him," Ginkaku said, as he patted the gourd tied to his belt. He let out a loud chuckle. He, you're not going to believe what happened, brother. But I assure you, you're going to laugh so hard. Raza's eyes looked at the gourd. So, Darui is inside that thing. Is he still alive? Anyway, I'd better try to snatch it out of him. Even if I can't save Darui, at least I'll stop that guy from sealing me in as well. Hey, Kazekage. Think fast. Kinkaku shouted as he waved his banana fan. Coil of fire. The banana fan produced a huge wave of flames. Raza leaped backwards as he motioned both his arms in an arc. A tide of golden sand burst from underground, quickly flowing forward in order to meet the advancing wall of fire. While the golden barrier managed to hold the fire for a few seconds, the gold quickly led into a large amount of liquefied metal, allowing the fire to continue unimpeded. And if that wasn't bad enough, Ginkaku was running parallel to the fire at a breaknecking speed, ready to sink the seven-star sword into Raza's soft flesh. Sage Art, Magnificent Sickle Weasel Jutsu. Raza felt something latch onto several parts of his body. They felt like chakra threads, before he was pulled backwards by a colossal force. As this happened, somebody blew an extremely powerful gale. The gale clashed against the wall of fire, the two elemental forces struggling. However, the wall of fire was unable to overcome the blast of wind, and soon Kinkaku saw the fires he had summoned pushed back against him. What? The golden-haired brother asked in shock. Coil of water. White Kinkaku summoned a torrent of water to nullify his own attack. Kinkaku suddenly found himself about to be buried by a tsunami of sand, normal sand, not the golden kind that Raza was using, forcing the silver-haired sibling to fall back and regroup with his older brother. Father, are you okay? Raza looked back, and found himself staring into his oldest son's eyes, which were golden for some reason. Gaara and Temari soon joined him, their eyes also golden as well. I'll live, he replied. The color of your eyes and the scale of your attacks is that sage mode? Temari smirked. It was rare the occasion where their father praised them, so she was going to savor the moment. Yeah, this is it. That trip to Konoha was quite productive for us, huh? Did you find any intel on the enemy, father? Gaara asked, his face stoic as ever. We only saw a part of your battle, but I can tell the opponents are formidable ones. Their chakra is really potent, Kankuro added. And it feels oddly familiar. You're right, these enemies are like nothing you ever faced before, Raza began. The guy with the golden hair, Kinkaku, has a fan that allows him to cast barrages of any of the 5 elements. And don't touch the glowing rope wrapped on his other arm. If you do, Kinkaku, the other brother, will use that sword to take a piece of your soul and store it inside that gourd. You will be cursed, and if you say your most used word, he'll absorb you into that gourd, Raza continued explaining. Darui got himself caught. I don't know if he's still alive, but you should try to get that gourd back to see if we can release him. Understood, father, Gaara said with a nod. Leave them to us. Kinkaku and Ginkaku watched how Raza fell back while his children took a step forward. Ginkaku snarled in anger. What the hell? You think you can escape from us and let a trio of snot-nosed brats do your job? The silver-haired ninja roared. Come back here and fight us like a man. Pipe down, Ginkaku, the older brother said. There's something off about that trio of brats. Don't drop your guard. Whatever. Let's make mincemeat out of them. Kinkaku, make an opening with the banana fan. Ginkaku asked. Temari quickly prepared her war fan, while sand burst around Gaara. Kenkuro readied Tomatsu and Sasori, while unsealing from a scroll a third puppet, one that was covered entirely by a long dark brown cloak with a hood. If these guys are as strong as father say, I'll use Siren as well, Kenkuro said, shooting multiple threads from a single finger to bind and control the newest puppet. Kinkaku prepared to attack. Let's see your little fan stop mine this time. Coil of Earth. The golden-haired brother waved the banana fan once again, unleashing a row of huge rising rocks towards the sand siblings. Kenkuro and Temari leaped into opposite directions, but Gaara remained immobile. He then thrust his hand forward, and torrents of sand started to merge into an orb in front of him. Sage Art, Magnet Release, Sand Bullet Storm. The orb fired hundreds of sand bullets at huge speed, each bullet carrying destructive power inversely proportional to their size. The minuscule sand projectiles shattered the row of rising rocks as if they were soft sandstone, forcing Kinkaku to jump back. "Well done, Gaara," Kenkuro said, as he moved Sasori towards the leaping brother. "Sasori will take care of him." Sasori's gut compartment opened, revealing a thick metal cable ended in an harpoon-like head wrapped around a pole. The cable fired, its harpoon stabbing itself into Kinkaku's chest. Before Kinkaku had any time to react, Sasori rocketed after him, displaying two poles at the back of its hips, with blades that started to rotate as chainsaw blades. Each of the blades cleanly cut each of Kinkaku's arms. Lastly, Kenkuro fired two chakra threads from his index finger, pulling the arms back, letting them fall behind him. The arms quickly dissolve into a pile of dust and paper bits, which returned to Kinkaku in order to regenerate, but the weapons remained there. "Kinkaku!" Kinkaku cried, upon seeing his older brother deprived of his weapons. He turned at his closest opponent, who happened to be Temari, and snarled at her. "You will pay for that, Suna trash." Temari merely smirked, basking herself in her enemy's anger. "Somehow, I find that unlikely." Wind Scythe Jutsu. Temari swung her fang, releasing a single, yet massive crescent-shaped blade of wind towards the silver-haired brother. Ginkaku parried the wind blade, which exploded into a burst of wind that expanded in every direction, pushing him backwards with such force, his fingers lost its grip around the seven-star sword. "Great! Now, I'll use Siren to get the last tool," Kenkuro said, moving his third puppet. Siren pulled out a large bow from under its cloak. Seals around it started to glow with a blue light, as a string of chakra formed between the ends of the bow. Siren then pulled the string in quick succession, firing large arrows made of chakra at Ginkaku. The silver-haired zombie tried to dodge them, but some of them found their mark. And one of them in particular managed to break the rope that tied the crimson gourd to Ginkaku's belt. More chakra threads shot towards Ginkaku, some snatching the flying sword, and the other pulling the crimson gourd from him. "And that's all," Kenkuro said, as he caught the crimson gourd, while letting the seven-star sword fall behind him with a clang. "Let's see what they do without their weapons." Kenkuro then opened the crimson gourd, which quickly spat Darui out. The Kumo Jonin stumbled for a bit, before he fell on one knee. "Whoa, there." Kenkuro quickly went to help Darui, helping him back on his feet. "You okay, man?" "Why yeah," Darui said, as his sense of balance slowly came back. "Thanks for rescuing me. And sorry for allowing myself to get caught." Don't sweat it," Kenkuro said with a shrug. "Listen, we just disarmed those assholes. Take their fancy weapons away while we seal them." You might have disarmed them, but they're far from harmless," Darui warned Kenkuro. "In fact, they now will dash." Darui was interrupted when the Sand siblings suddenly sensed a very familiar chakra. A kind of chakra they knew belonged to Naruto. But the source of said chakra wasn't Naruto, but the Gold and Silver brothers. And much to their shock, they saw how an aura of red burning chakra started to spread around their bodies. "Hey Ginkaku," Kinkaku growled. "I don't know about you, but I'm really pissed at these brats." "I'm with you," Jinkaku replied, sounding just as furious. "Let's paint the sand with their blood and guts." Wood release, wood clone jutsu. Wood growths started to form around Danzo's body. Said growths took a humanoid shape as they grew in size, turning into perfect replicas of Danzo, jumping around him and forming a circle. Yakumo's demonic illusion, Hell's Gate, was still active. Still, the wooden clones moved without difficulty through the burning battlefield. Yakumo and Haku both took a step back, as they adopted defensive stances. Such cruel irony, that when I have all the chakra to bring the potential of my body modifications to the surface, I have to do it to destroy the village I helped to build and defend, Danzo lamented. Consider it your personal hell. Yakumo shouted, not offering any sympathy to the former rude leader, as she started to make several hand seals. Demonic illusion, army of one. Multiple Yakumos suddenly appeared around the original and Haku. Outnumbering the Danzo clones 2-1, they quickly engaged the wooden doppelgangers. Haku took the opportunity to launch an attack, as his hands blurred through hand seals. Ice release, crushing glacier. Haku slammed his foot down, creating a row of rising large chunks of ice with very sharp edges in Danzo's direction. Danzo replied with a jutsu of his own. Wind release, greater vacuum wave. Danzo took a deep breath, exhaling a blast of super compressed air that crashed into the coming ice, shattering it into hundreds of shards, though without the power to completely plow through the jutsu and reach Haku. However, much to Danzo's initial surprise, the ice shards stayed still mid-air, before they flew towards Danzo as if they had life of their own. It shouldn't be surprising, given who your Jonin-sensei is, Danzo calmly said, as the tomo of his Sharingan started to spin. But such weak tricks will be useless against me. The shards all vanished into nothingness, the illusion unable to continue under the mighty watch of Danzo's stolen Sharingan. The illusion did its job, Haku's voice replied. Ice release, demonic crystal ice mirrors. Suddenly, multiple floating mirrors made of ice formed around the original Danzo. The mirrors were placed in a way that it looked like a dome, leaving the undead ninja no room to escape. Every dome reflected Haku's image. An impressive jutsu, Danzo praised. Not only you have a rare bloodline limit, but the talent to use it. It's a pity Jiraiya watched you so closely, or else I would have made you into a rude agent. With my guidance, I could have brought all your potential to the surface. I already have 2 teachers. And I doubt that either you or one of your associates could have done half the job they did with me, Haku replied. Normally I try to purge myself of negative emotions such as anger and hatred in order to fight properly. But in your case, given how much damage you caused to Konoha, the village you were supposed to protect, I think I'm going to indulge into some anger. Then that will be your doom, Danzo replied. Haku didn't say anything, and started to jump from one mirror to another, moving at such a speed the naked eye is unable to follow, throwing senbons at Danzo the extremely brief instance he was outside of the mirrors. Danzo managed to parry many of the senbons with a kunai, but despite his Sharingan, he was unable to stop all of them and many others found their mark. Not that it mattered, as the moment the regeneration kicked in, they were pushed out of his body. An impressive jutsu. But your little needles won't damage this body in the slightest, Danzo replied. I know. I was just testing you, Haku said from within the mirrors, as a pair of ice swords appeared on his hands. Let's see how well you do against this. Haku attacked again, delivering slashes with speed and precision. Once again, despite his Sharingan, Danzo was able to parry only half of his strikes. Every time Haku slashed Danzo, even if it was a superficial scratch, ice would start to grow over the wound. After several strikes, half of Danzo's body was covered in frost. With all that frost, it should be nearly impossible for him to move, Haku thought, as he prepared for the final strike. Now all that's left is to encase him into a block of ice and add some chakra suppressing seals. However, as Haku prepared to attack, he noticed something odd. Danzo had lost all his color, his skin, hair, and clothes taking a very dull shade of brown, almost as if he was made of wood clone. Haku asked aloud, as he stepped out of the mirror. It's Naruto-kun's tactic. How can I have been fooled by a move that I've seen hundreds of times? However, Haku's self-directed anger was forced to take a back seat when the Land of Water native realized that, if Danzo left a decoy, Haku wasn't the target, but Yakumo. Worried, he stopped channeling chakra into the mirrors, allowing them to dissolve into nothingness, as he rushed towards where he last remembered seeing Yakumo. Yakumo-san, watch out. Danzo escaped my mirror prison. One of those clones is accurately him. Haku warned her. Got it. Yakumo replied with a nod. Don't worry, he won't catch me off guard. I'm almost done with his clones. One of them has to be the real one. Fools, Danzo's voice said, albeit it didn't come from any of the clones. Wood release, wood binding jutsu. Multiple wooden vines burst around Haku, wrapping themselves around the Konoha ninja's body before he had time to react, pinning his arms to his body, and leaving him immobilized. You thought I was going after the girl, Danzo said. Yet you never thought that I could be using her as a bait to make you drop your guard. You and the other ninjas in your generation have power and skill unlike any other, but lack discipline and a cool mind. Haku-san. Yakumo shouted, as he formed a hand seal. Danzo's head turned around, his Sharingan glinting red. Don't even try to put me under a genjutsu. It won't work. Yakumo took a step back and adopted a defensive stance. Danzo made a hand seal, summoning more vines around Haku that would stop other ninjas from help him from the outside. Ignoring the now secured Haku, the former leader of Root took a step forward. Given that you're the last members of two clans with powerful bloodline limits, Orochimaru prefers if I catch you alive, Danzo told her. Consider yourselves lucky. Then, Danzo dashed towards Yakumo before she could cast another genjutsu or ninjutsu attack, and engaged her in close combat. Even in his old age, Danzo never neglected training and was a force to be reckoned with. And now that Orochimaru had returned him his youth, his physical capabilities were at his peak. Very few ninja could match Danzo in sheer hand-to-hand combat. And Yakumo wasn't a ninja made for direct combat. Thanks to Tsunade's treatments, her body became strong enough to endure the physical hardships of being a ninja, but taijutsu was still by far her biggest weak point. While she was fast and nimble, Danzo would only need one good hit in order to crack her bones and leave her completely hopeless. Ice release, crushing glacier. Danzo turned around too late to see a row of huge sharp-edged chunks of ice rising in his direction, before one of them slammed into his gut and sent him flying backwards, landing on his back. Ice release, Kritzel bird. Haku breathed out a massive gust of cold, frigid air. The air condensed into solid matter, taking the shape of a large bird. The ice bird then flew towards the still-down Danzo, crashing into his body. The resulting explosion of frost and cold air encased Danzo's body inside a block of solid ice, leaving only his head and shoulders exposed. What? How? Danzo asked, unable to repress his shock. I had pinned you down. And I made sure nobody could release you from the outside. From the outside being the key words, Haku replied, unable to repress a smug smirk. I managed to break out from the inside. How? Even if you can make seals with one hand, I immobilized both your arms. Danzo replied. Easy. Yakumo-san helped me, Haku said. See, she used a genjutsu on me to make me think that my arms were free, allowing me to make hand seals. In reality I was unable to, but my brain believed I did and my chakra network reacted accordingly, allowing me to use my ninjutsu without hand seals. That genjutsu from before I wasn't the target. No wonder I didn't feel anything, Danzo said in realization. Good job, Yakumo-san. Now, let's seal him for good, Haku replied. Yakumo nodded, as the two of them walked towards the frozen man. Unfortunately for them, Danzo still had one ace under the hole. His lone Sharingan changed shape into a more complex pattern Okinanushi. Suddenly, two negative-colored translucent Danzo copies jumped from his body, lunging at Haku and Yakumo, startling them and forcing them to jump back as they attempted to parry the sudden attacks. Other two replicas appeared besides Danzo, and shattered the ice, keeping him prisoner, releasing him once again. It just doesn't end with this man, does it? Yakumo irritably grumbled, as she parried a blow from a Danzo afterimage with a kunai. So it seems. Come on, we have to keep fighting. We've been close to beating him before, I know we can do it, Haku reassured her. Yakumo nodded, and the two of them resumed the battle against the former leader of Root. Meanwhile, in the air, Kurenai and Hataru continued their fight against Deidara. The blonde Akatsuki looked at the Genjutsu mistress floating in front of him, and the Kiri Kunoichi standing on a floating bubble near her. He fed the mouths inside his palms explosive clay, which they began to chew. Once again, you show that you're unable to beat me on your own, you Genjutsu bitch. Deidara said, before his mouth hands spat more clay figurines shaped like birds. Your shitty illusions have nothing on my wonderful art. Deidara threw the bird clay figure forward, which started to flap its wings as it flew towards Kurenai. The Akatsuki member made a hand seal, and a dozen more clay birds appeared around the first one. Hataru, however, was ready to act. Don't worry, Kurenai-san, I got this. Hataru said, as she made several hand seals. Water release, bubble prison. Placing her lips around the mouth of Yudikata's pipe, Hataru blew a flurry of small bubbles, which slowly flew to intercept the clay birds. However, as if they had a brain of their own, the birds easily flew around the bubbles, dodging them. What? The Kiri Kunoichi asked in shock. Those things can move autonomously. Don't try to intercept them with slow-moving projectiles. Kurenai warned her, as she flew away from the incoming clay birds, while making several hand seals. Wind release, wind wall. Kurenai exhaled a wide cone of wind that pushed the incoming bird backwards, some of them detonating. However, many others managed to avoid exploding prematurely, and continued their flight towards the Genjutsu mistress. The raven-haired woman, sensing how her chakra levels dropped to half her full reserves, decided that she couldn't continue relying on riding the hurricane, and cancelled it while landing on one of Hataru's bubble platforms. Hataru-san, see if you can create more of those bubbles to move around. Kurenai said, as she pulled several kunai from her ninja tool pouch. I'm afraid I won't be able to fly on my own anymore. Got it. Hataru replied, as she started blowing more of said bubbles. As more bubbles formed around them, Kurenai jumped from one to another, infusing the kunai with her chakra for added power, and tossing the chakra-charged weapons at any of the birds that flew towards her, making them to explode prematurely, engulfing the area into a huge cloud of smoke. Kurenai jumped out of the cloud of smoke, landing on a bubble platform. Hataru-san, this Akatsuki is a ranged specialist. We need to get close to him in order to have any hopes of victory. Kurenai told her. Understood. I'll make sure all the bubble platforms stay close to him. Hataru replied. Good luck with that. My clay dragon is not only a devastating weapon, but also serves as an excellent aerial mount. Deidara boasted, and to prove his point, he made his dragon dive, before flying up again, while doing several spins. Hataru's bubbles tried to keep up with the clay creature's speed, but had a hard time doing so. What do you think about that, HN? Your pretty aerial tricks won't help you defeat us, Kurenai defiantly replied. Oh really? In that case, how about this trick, HN? I remember it gave you quite the trouble the last time. Deidara said, as he started making hand seals. Explosion release, explosive clay hive queen. The clay dragon spat a blob of clay, which burst into a cloud of smoke. And from said cloud of smoke, the familiar view of a large giant insect with a disproportionately large abdomen emerged. Hataru-san, watch out. That thing can create explosive insects of its own. Kurenai warned. And to prove Kurenai right, the clay hive queen spat several balls of clay that quickly took the shape of small insects, which quickly buzzed off towards the two kunoichi. Hataru prepared her pipe. Don't worry, Kurenai-san, I've got this. Hataru confidently said, as she started to make hand seals. Water release, water bubble prison. Hataru blew another flurry of bubbles towards the incoming insects, but once again, the insects easily dodged the slow-moving bubbles, and continued their flight towards Kurenai and Hataru. When they reached them, they latched onto their bodies and detonated before they could remove them from their skin. High-pitched screams filled the air as the two women were engulfed by a chain of explosions. Ha! Yes, take that, you bitches. Heh, that was so easy, Deidara said, basking in his victory. That's it, until a thought dawned upon him. Too easy, now that I think about it. The Akatsuki then made a hand seal, and sent a burst of chakra through the rest of his body. And much to his frustration but none to his surprise, he saw the cloud of smoke slowly vanishing into nothingness, replaced by his hive queen and explosive insects being trapped inside of bubbles. And while Hataru was there, Kurenai was nowhere to be seen. That's it, until he noticed a shadow being cast over him. Deidara looked up, and saw Kurenai leaping at him from a bubble platform, kunai in hand. Shit, he yelled, as he tried to make his dragon fly away. But too late. Kurenai landed just behind him, and as Deidara turned around to face her, she tried to plunge her kunai into the Akatsuki's chest. Deidara managed to catch Kurenai's wrist with one hand, and when the Genjutsu mistress tried to punch him with the other, he also grabbed her other wrist with his free hand. The two of them struggled against the other for a bit, until there was a crunching noise. Eh! Kurenai screamed, as blood started to pour from her wrists. Ha! Did you forget how I create my art? Deidara mocked, grinning savagely. Having mouths in the palms of my hands can be quite useful, don't you think? Kurenai changed strategy, and started to kick Deidara instead, aiming for the groin. But much to her surprise, she didn't get the reaction she was expecting. Hell, it almost appeared as if he wasn't even feeling any pain at all. Don't tell me you're actually a woman, Kurenai grimaced, as an inopportune flashback of her mistakenly believing that Haku was a girl when she first met him played in his mind. Deidara's grin widened. Oh, it's even better than that. Then, Deidara lost all color, both his hair, skin, and clothes turning grayish-white, the same kind of shade as the clay dragon they were standing on. Kurenai's lost all color on her face when she realized that she was immobilized by an explosive clone. Said clone started to glow as it began to gather and accumulate chakra. The Genjutsu mistress tried even harder to break its grip, but to no avail. Kurenai-san. Hataru's voice called from beside her. Water release, water severing wave. Hataru expelled a thread of super compressed water, severing the arms of the clone, and releasing the raven-haired woman. Kurenai jumped with a few seconds to spare before the clone exploded. Hataru then blew into her pipe as if it was a blowgun, firing a single water blob at Kurenai. When the water bullet was just below her, it suddenly turned into another platform bubble, breaking her fall. Ow, she whined, as she rubbed her pained, blood-covered wrists. Thanks for the save, Hataru-san. Thank me later, we still have to beat that guy. Hataru replied. That moment, Deidara, presumably the real one, emerged from the cloud of smoke produced by the explosive clone, riding on his dragon, who apparently was undamaged from the blast. I'd like to see you try. Deidara hollered. I saw you fight and now that you need to weave seals in order to cast your thrice-damned genjutsu. Try to make hand seals with your wrist like that. Rather than being intimidated, Kurenai merely smirked confidently. Perhaps I don't need to make hand seals to make my illusions, Akatsuki, Kurenai replied. Take a look behind you. Despite knowing it was a trick, Deidara turned around, and much to his shock and anger, he saw a small army of allied ninja, all riding flying animals, mostly insects such as bees and beetles, but there were some birds and even a bat as well. He wasn't that surprised. He had heard the allied shinobi force had an air force, but didn't believe that they managed to arrive to the battle in such a convenient timing. His first instinct, naturally, was to try to dispel the genjutsu Kurenai put him under, even if he couldn't recall when that happened. Release. A burst of chakra waved through his body, disrupting his chakra network. But the aerial army remained there, in place. The next confirmation that it wasn't a genjutsu came in the form of the flying zetsu. A second ago, they were busy harassing the allied ground forces. They already learned through the hard way not to get close to Deidara, as the mad bomber wasn't one to care about collateral damage, and immediately took off and went to meet the new enemy in battle. What the? Deidara said, as he narrowed his eyes at something that caught his eye. Because among the ninjas riding giant flying animals, there was one who appeared to be flying on their own. A blue-haired individual carried by large wings that appeared to be made of hundreds of sheets of paper. No way, no fucking way. Deidara yelled. What's wrong? What did you see that caused you so much distress? Kurenai asked in a mocking tone. Hataru was with her, helping wrap her wrists with some bandage she carried. However, Deidara was no longer paying attention to the genjutsu mistress nor Yudikata's former apprentice. Because the winged ninja, ignoring the flying white zetsu fighting the rest of the allied air forces, split from the group and flew towards him. And as the winged ninja flew closer, Deidara could identify her. Conan. Deidara screamed. The fuck are you doing fighting with the enemy? Greetings, Deidara, Conan said in her usual stoic tone, seemingly ignoring his rage and indignation. After so much time, we see each other again. Don't try to win me with pointless politeness. Deidara roared. You fucking traitor. I'm no traitor. I was always loyal to Nagato and his vision of a better future, Conan replied, now sounding indignant herself. And such vision can't hope to happen with Akatsuki under Obito's rule. Only Naruto Uzumaki and his friends and allies can take us to a better tomorrow. Spare me your bullshit. Do you think that you can just quit Akatsuki like that? Deidara roared, his nostrils flaring with anger. Yes, was her answer, delivered in a tone that made her intentions and convictions clear. And given that my former enemies show me mercy and the chance to redeem myself for my sins, I shall show you the same courtesy. Leave this corrupted version of Akatsuki, Deidara. There's still time to do the right thing. Huh? You think that, after you and your boyfriend strong-armed me into joining your little club, I'm going to let you betray us and walk away unscathed? Well, think again. A regrettable answer. But not an unexpected one, Conan said, as her wings expanded. She then looked at Kurenai and Hataru, both standing on a pole-form bubble a few meters below Deidara. You no longer have to deal with this man. Leave him to me. Wordlessly, Hataru nodded and commanded the bubble platform to float down back to the ground. You think you and your little origami figures can take on my art, Chen? Ha! Deidara yelled, as his clay dragon shot a clay projectile at Conan. The former Akatsuki member quickly evaded the explosive missile, which detonated a few meters behind her. Deidara's dragon continued firing explosive projectiles at Conan, but the Bluenet dodged them expertly. Soon the air was filled with the loud thunderclaps of explosions and the black clouds of smoke they left behind, but Conan was never harmed. That's it, until one of the explosions caught her too close, and burned a little of her left wing, making her to tumble down. Huh, yes. Deidara said, as she threw more clay figurines at her. Now disappear already. Several birds made of explosive clay left Deidara's hand and dived at the falling Conan. Upon seeing them, Conan wrapped her wings around herself, forming a barrier of paper. The moment the birds hit her improvised shield, it was engulfed by a chain of explosions. And boom! Traitor gone, the blonde Akatsuki cheered, as he looked down at the clouds of smoke below him. Though being part of my art was too good of an end to dash, Deidara was then alerted of a weird noise coming from below. Tiny wings, like those of a bird, flapping. But not just one or two, but actually hundreds. Then, much to his shock, a swarm of hundreds upon hundreds of origami butterflies emerged from the cloud of smoke, gathering in front of him. The paper swarm split in two, revealing Conan, completely unharmed. I already experienced your art before, and it's just as disappointing as it is now, Conan said, narrowing her eyes at the blonde. Now, let me show you a taste of what my little origami figures can do. Conan motioned her arm forward, and the swarm of origami butterflies launches itself at Deidara. After letting out a curse, the former IWA Nin quickly turned his dragon around and mad-eyed fly as fast as it could, with the paper swarm trailing after him. Deidara sent more explosive clay figurines towards the paper menace. Burn already! Multiple explosions burned many of Conan's paper butterflies, but many more emerged from the resulting cloud of smoke, almost if Deidara's attack didn't have any effect on it. He continued flying around, but the butterflies were restless. Paper chakram. Deidara saw how a large ring made of razor-sharp papers flew towards his dragon at a breaknecking speed. He tried to maneuver it in order to dodge it. However, he was too slow, and the paper weapon sliced a piece of the clay dragon's wing. With its wing damaged, the dragon could no longer fly in a stable manner, and it spiraled down, until it crashed against the ground. The impact threw Deidara from the dragon's back, and landed painfully on his back. Shit, he cursed, as he pushed the pain away and tried to get back to his feet. However, as he did, the butterflies finally reached him, and started to latch onto his body. Soon, he was completely encased inside a cocoon made of paper, completely immobile. Looking up, he saw Conan looming over him, staring at him with eyes full of contempt. I wanted to offer you the same opportunity it was offered to me, but I should have known that you would reject it, Conan began. You're nothing but a sadist with a twisted and sick fascination with destruction. The world will be a better place without you. Fuck you, you bitch. Deidara said, as he tried to spat a glob of blood at her. I'm an artist. Conan merely frowned. And now, you're going to die. So tragic, the end of an artist. Conan made a single-hand seal as she narrowed her amber eyes at Deidara. But rest assured, Deidara, at the very least, I'll make your demise into a work of art. Conan's statement was followed by yet another chain of explosions, resulting in loud bangs and bright flashes of fire, followed by a cloud of smoke. And when the smoke dispelled, there was nothing left of Deidara. Akatsuki had lost another of its members. The Sand siblings watched in awe the sight before them. A few moments ago, the Gold and Silver brothers looked like any other human, but with the cracked skin and black eyes of the reanimations. Now, they were larger, covered in a deep dark red thick chakra cloak, with 5 tails of chakra forming behind them, the tail in the middle being much larger than the other 2. That's the 9 tails chakra, Temari said, trying to make sense of what she was feeling. How do these 2 guys have the 9 tails power? That's an irrelevant question, Gaara interjected. What we should ask ourselves is what are we going to do to beat them now that they revealed such a power? Okay, maybe these 2 guys aren't going to be as easy as we thought, Kankuro nervously mentioned. Temari shot her brother an annoyed look. You think so? It wasn't just the physical appearance that had changed. While the Sand siblings could feel the hidden power behind the chakra of the Kumo missing Nin thanks to their sage mode, now that power wasn't hidden anymore. It was the difference between seeing a lake of still magma inside a crater, and watch it erupt from a volcano. Enough. I don't want a discussion at such an inopportune time, Gaara told his older siblings in a firm tone. The enemy is a formidable one, but we can beat them. A pale copy of the 9 tails powers won't be enough to bring us down. Is that a challenge, little ginger? Kinkaku or Ginkaku, it was hard to tell them apart in their transformed state, asked, his claws digging into the ground. It's a statement, Gaara replied, unfazed. Suddenly, the ground around Kinkaku exploded as he dashed towards Gaara, leaving a trail of dust behind, ready to smash Gaara's head between his enlarged, clawed arms. However, Gaara's sand proved to be just as fast, getting in the way between the two, forming a thick barrier. Said barrier also grew multiple spikes of compressed sand, but they were unable to pierce the chakra cloak. Temari chose that moment to attack, and leaped in front of Gaara. Sage Art, Wind Release, Hands of the Wind God. Temari swung her war fan, producing a powerful tornado that, even if it blew the sand away, it also elevated Kinkaku into the air. The pseudo-Jinchuriki trashed wildly trying to remain on the ground, but without nothing to anchor himself to, his efforts were useless. Fortunately for him, an anchor was going to be available. Kinkaku! Ginkaku shouted, as he shot his largest tail towards his airborne brother. It seemed that Ginkaku could elongate that tail at will. Grab onto me! Kinkaku was snapped of his fury, and mimicking his brother's moment, also elongated his largest chakra tail towards the ground. Both tails wrapped around each other. Ginkaku then dug his hands into the ground in order to anchor himself to it, successfully stopping his brother from being carried away from the wind. Great job, Ginkaku, his older brother praised. And that's not all, runts. Now watch this. Gikaku said, as he heaved the tail holding his brother down. Everybody, move. Gaara warned, as he and his siblings jumped back in opposite directions, while watching in horror how the airborne Kinkaku was brought down like a giant hammer. Crimson Meteor. Ginkaku slammed Kinkaku into the ground, making the earth shake with a booming thunderclap. The ground exploded when the elder brother hit it, the resulting shockwave opening a large crater into the ground, with many cracks appearing around it and slowly spreading around, and sending waves of dirt, dust, and mud into every direction. Shit, the force behind that hit, Kankuro said, trying to keep his balance from the still shaking earth. If we were hit by that, not even Sage Mode would have allowed us to survive, Gaara coldly stated. So we better keep our guard at all times. We might have the power to beat them, but the reverse is also true. Temari warned her little brothers. Plus they have much more battle experience than us. When the clouds of smoke and dirt vanished, Kinkaku was standing in the middle of the newfound hole in the ground, looking unscathed despite the powerful impact. Heh, that was fun, Kinkaku. We never went all out since that chump Tobarama, Kinkaku laughed. Hey, Kinkaku, don't you think it's my time to have some fun? Ginkaku said, echoing his brother's laugh. I do think that, Kinkaku said, his demonic grin widening, as his white glowing eyes fixed on the Sand siblings. You brats are going to enjoy this. Then, while the two brothers were still bound together by their tails, Ginkaku curled himself into a ball, with his tails wrapped around his body, while Kinkaku started to spin on the spot, dragging Ginkaku in a circle. He continued spinning at an increasingly high velocity, to the point that Ginkaku was no longer dragged through the ground but carried through the air. The spinning speed continued to increase, and a tornado started to form around them, with powerful gusts of wind reaching the Sand siblings. Spinning Crimson Morning Star. Then, much to their shock, Kinkaku started to move towards them as he continued spinning. Temari, Kankuro, attack at once. Gaara ordered, as he moved his arms forward, commanding it to attack. Wind release, multiple sand bullets. Red secret move, Puppet Triad. Wind release, Great Sickle Weasel Jutsu. Gaara's sand gathered above him into a single, massive blob, before it fired a barrage of sand missiles. Kankuro made the Sasori puppet to fire a barrage of kunai, while Siren fired a multitude of chakra arrows from its chakra bows. Temari swung her fan, releasing a powerful wind current. The three attacks merged together into a single, destructive force, aimed for the incoming brothers and were unceremoniously deflected away by the powerful spinning force Kinkaku was generating. What the hell? They shrugged off some of our best moves like they were nothing, an angry Kankuro protested. That's like that Hyuga defensive jutsu they have. The heavenly spin, I believe it was called, Temari noticed. Does that jutsu has a weak spot, or a way to break it? Something that we can use? Kankuro asked. The uppermost part of the spinning dome is the most vulnerable spot. However, with the protective winds they're generating, an attack from above would be impossible, Gaara said, as his eyes studied the incoming brothers. Then, he dropped to one knee, and slammed his hand onto the ground. They're also vulnerable from an attack coming from below. As the Kumo brothers moved towards them, they didn't notice that the ground started to shake. Then, a stream of sand shot from underground as if it were a geyser, sending Kinkaku, and by extension, Ginkaku, into the air, hollering and screaming profanities. Gaara waved his arms, and the sand surrounded the flying brothers, ready to encase them in a gigantic sand prison. He then clenched his hands into fists. Sand cough dash, however, both Kinkaku and Ginkaku roared in unison, letting out a powerful chakra pulse that repelled the sand away as if it was the shock wave of an explosion. Quickly, while they're still mid-air, aim for their tails. Gaara told his siblings. We have to stop them from using those combo attacks against us. Kenkuro and Temari nodded. Wind release, wind scythe. Mechanical light arrow shot. Temari swung her fan again, this time generating several crescent-shaped blades of pressurized wind, while Kenkuro's hooded puppet fired a large, thick chakra arrow. Both attacks hit on the pseudo-Jinchuriki's tails in the part where they were wrapped around each other, breaking their physical connection a few seconds before they landed on the ground. Now, to separate them, Gaara said, as he slammed both hands into the ground. Great Sand Barrier. From the middle point between Gaara's hands, the former Jinchuriki of the One Tail unleashed a row of rising sand pillars, bifurcating the field, and forcing the two brothers, Kinkaku. Ginkaku shouted. Forget about me. Let's tear these brats apart. We don't need the other to do such a thing. Kinkaku replied, as he started to run on his fours towards the sand siblings, leaving a trail of dust behind. Sensing what his brother was doing, Ginkaku also rushed forward. Here they come. Temari said. I know. Temari, prepare to block Kinkaku. Kenkuro, you take on the other one, Gaara commanded. Understood, Kenkuro replied, as he put himself to Gaara's right, while Temari took the left flank. What are you going to do? Do you have a plan? Yes, I do have a plan, Gaara replied. Albeit it hinges on them not being allowed to work in tandem against us again, so try your best to keep them separated. Leave it to us. Kenkuro said, making several hand motions to move his puppets. They won't see what hit them. Kenkuro's three puppets moved towards the incoming Ginkaku, with Tomatsu in the middle, its shield already prepared to block, and Sasori and Siren a little behind it to its sides. Ginkaku, however, wasn't going to take the obvious bait. You think you're the first puppeteer I fight? Ginkaku roared, as he continued running on all fours. If you think I'm going to waste any time with your little toys, you must not have a brain inside that ugly head of yours. So cute. He thinks he has a chance, Kenkuro chuckled, as he made a hand seal. Sage Art, Maelstrom Shield. Tomatsu's shield opened up in 4 sections, revealing a multitude of sealing patterns under its primary shell. The seal started to glow with a blue light, and the air in front of it started to twist and swirl, as if reality itself was being teared apart. Despite Ginkaku was trying to steer away from Tomatsu, but no matter what he did, it felt like he was being railroaded into running straight towards the shield-bearing puppet. He stopped on his tracks, snarling angrily. I don't know what trickery is this, but it won't work. Ginkaku said, as he raised his face while opening his jaws. Energy particles started to gather above it, forming a dark red sphere of Tailed Beast Chakra. Tailed Beast Ball Barrage. Ginkaku caught the energy ball inside his mouth, before spitting it in the form of multiple chakra blasts, sailing in arcs above the puppets towards Kenkuro. However, much to Ginkaku's surprise and anger, the chakra bolts all altered their course so they would fly into Tomatsu's shield instead. The attack landed, resulting in a chain of explosions. However, when the smoke from the blasts dispelled, Tomatsu was there, its shield unscratched. Oh yeah, ranged attacks aren't going to work either, Kenkuro replied. That's why the jutsu is called Maelstrom Shield. It will draw everything to it. Avoiding it is impossible. If I can't avoid it, then I shall smash through it. Ginkaku roared, the Berserker pseudo-Jinchurikin no longer caring that he might be playing into the puppeteer's hands, as his growing rage clouded his mind. He quickly reached Tomatsu and raised a clawed hand to tear it to shreds. Kenkaro smirked. Mechanical light shield counterblast. All the energy from Ginkaku's claw swipe was absorbed and gathered into an orb of energy at the middle of the shield. The energy of that orb was released in the form of a conical chakra blast, hurling the pseudo-Jinchuriki backwards, skidding against the ground. And that's not all. Kenkaro said, as he started to make move hand and finger movements. Sasori opened several compartments around its body, revealing various weapons. Siren removed its cloak, revealing its full appearance, a puppet with streamlined humanoid appearance. It then pulled a second chakra bow, and combined it with the first, forming an X-shaped bow with two chakra strings that crossed in the middle. It pulled the two strings, generating 4 chakra arrows. Sage Art, Black Secret Technique, Performance of the Warring Puppets. Sasori fired a multitude of kunai, senbon, and shuriken from its body-mounted weapons, some of them on fire, others coated in poison, others with explosive tags attached to them. Siren let loose, firing its 4 chakra arrows at once, flying in an arc towards Ginkaku. When they reached their highest point, they split into dozens of smaller chakra arrows, and they arced down towards the undead ninja. The barrage of steel and chakra projectiles, engulfing him inside a chain of explosions. While Kenkaro dealt with Kinkaku, at the other side of the sand barrier, fought Temari. Like his brother, he let the animalistic feelings overwhelm his body and mind, and start running on all fours towards the Sunakunoichi. So far, the only thing inside the older brother's mind was pure, unadulterated anger and hatred. Wind release, Great Wind Protective Wall. Temari swung her war fan, creating an extremely powerful gust of wind in order to push the incoming Kinkaku back. The pseudo-Jinchuriki, however, avoided it by quickly digging underground. He can use earth jutsu as well? Gaara asked. So it seems, Temari said, as her eyes darted to the ground. Normally I'd be worried, but thanks to Sage Mode, I can sense exactly where he is. Temari then folded her war fan, and raised it above her head while running forward. A blue aura started to form around the fan as Temari channeled chakra through it. There. Temari slammed her folded fan into the ground as if it was a club. Between Temari's senjutsu enhanced strength and all the chakra she had been channeling into the weapon, the impact managed to crack the earth, opening a hole, blowing chunks of ground and dirt away, and more importantly, forcing Kinkaku out into the open. Shit! Gaara, try to catch him while he's airborne. Temari yelled. Understood, Gaara said, as he waved a hand. Part of the sand forming the barrier shot towards Kinkaku in the form of a powerful stream. However, the eldest of the gold and silver brothers wasn't going to go down so easily. Kinkaku opened his jaws, and energy particles started to gather in front of them, taking the form of a dark red sphere of chakra. After a couple seconds, Kinkaku's jaws closed around the sphere. Tailed Beast Lightning Cluster. When Kinkaku opened his jaws again, a torrent of red lightning bolts came from it, blasting the wave of sand, which allowed him to hit the ground safely and continued forward. The attack didn't run out of fuel just yet, as he continued to breathe more bolts of destructive chakra from his mouth. Wind release, wind wall. Temari blew her fan, this time downwards in a vertical motion, creating another wave of wind in order to stop the incoming beast-shaped man. However, despite the powerful wind, Kinkaku was able to remain anchored to the ground thanks to the claws at the end of his fingers, and continued his advance even if it was at a slower pace. Then, they all heard a series of explosions from the other side of the sand barrier. The three of them could feel how Ginkaku's chakra weakened considerably. Kinkaku stopped on his tracks, looked between shocked and outraged. Ginkaku. No, the golden-haired brother shouted. Kinkaku lowered his body, and after a couple seconds, leaped into the air, easily going over the sand barrier. Spikes of sand grew over the barrier in an effort to catch him, but he was too high. Okay, I wasn't expecting he could do that, Temari said, admitting how amazed she was. But I guess that we should have seen it coming. It is of no consequence, Gaara calmly said. Kenkuro has been able to incapacitate the other brother, and this one has already fallen into my trap. He has? Temari asked, confused. Yes. Now let's hurry, we need to help our brother. Back to Kenkuro and Ginkaku, the younger brother had now reverted to his human form, the senjutsu-enhanced bombardment being too much for him to handle. Aside from his chakra cloak, he had lost both legs and an arm. He could feel them slowly regenerating, as well as his chakra, but not fast enough before stopping Kenkuro from sealing him. Ginkaku. With a loud boom, Kinkaku, still in his chakra cloak, landed near the fallen Ginkaku. Perhaps his older brother could buy the silver-haired man enough time to regenerate. Ginkaku. Who did this to you? His brother roared. Looking around, he saw Kenkuro, as well as his 3 puppets he was controlling through many chakra threads. You. It was you. Kenkuro smirked. I always love when somebody recognizes a work well done. Kinkaku didn't take just kindly. As his rage reached new heights, his chakra cloak burned brighter, his body grew in size, and moving his head back, he let out an extremely loud roar. He then started to rush towards Kenkuro on all fours, his footsteps leaving smoking holes in the ground, and a trail of fire behind him. The sage puppeteer gulped, and hoped that Tomatsu would be able to withstand this onslaught as it did with the younger brother. Temari, now. Gaara's voice said. Sage art, all-encompassing vortex. Temari landed in front of Kenkuro, and blew her fan a single time, producing an extremely powerful hurricane. In his feral state, Kinkaku didn't even think in attaching himself to the ground like he did before, and was elevated into the air. As the hurricane kept growing, it also managed to suck the fallen Ginkaku in. Time to end this, Gaara said, as he held out an open hand towards the hurricane. The sand barrier broke apart into a shapeless mass of sand, and Gaara directed it towards the hurricane, wind and sand merging into an intense sandstorm. Kenkuro, Temari, prepare the sealing tags. You got it. Kenkuro said, as he and his sister got ready. Gaara then closed his open hand into a fist. Imperial Sand Burial. Suddenly, the raging sandstorm stopped, and all the sand condensed into a solid structure shaped like a pyramid, falling to the ground with a loud thud. As soon as it did, Temari and Kenkuro rushed towards it, and slapped many chakra-suppressing sealing tags around it. Chains of sealing symbols spread from the paper tags, covering the pyramid entirely. The 3 sages could sense how the chakra of the 2 brothers receded, until they could no longer sense it. This fight belonged to the Sand siblings. And soon, the rest of the battle going around them would follow.